Welcome to the Ultimate Morning Routine Challenge. I'm a human biologist and co-founder of the Ultimate Human, Gary Brecka, and I'm so pumped that you guys are here. Guys, over the next 3 days, we're going to completely transform the way that you start your day so you can optimize your energy, optimize your focus, your longevity, and even your performance. And I've been super, super intentional about putting this 3-day challenge together because I think that the morning routine is not only does it start your day, but it sets the tone for your cellular biology for the next entire 24-hour cycle. So I'm going to break this down into some simple, easy, actionable steps. And what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about a good, a better, and a best. I know a lot of you have really, really busy schedules, so you don't have 90 minutes in the morning to care for yourself. I know some of you have 60 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, but what if you only have 15 minutes? What if you actually can't change much about your morning routine? We're going to try to biostack the routines that you're already doing so that your cellular biology gets the reward that it deserves out of your morning routine. I've been deep down the rabbit hole lately about, what is really plaguing humanity. We're the largest spender in healthcare worldwide here in the United States. As many of you know, the United States leads the world in only 7 things: morbid obesity, type 2 diabetes, multiple chronic disease in a single biome. We have the highest rates of childhood cancer. We have the highest rates of multiple diseases in the single biome. We lead the world in maternal mortality. We lead the world in infant mortality. And now we are ranked 66th in the world in life expectancy. I gave a talk yesterday, a Make America Healthy Again talk yesterday at Mar-a-Lago to thousands of guests, on behalf of Bobby Kennedy and some other really just powerful influencers in the space. I feel very blessed to be a part of that movement, and I want to take you guys on that movement with me. And part of what it starts with is just being intentional and very conscious about our bodies. I want you to think about your body as a temple. And we really need to think about this as a temple. We only have one temple. Let's not let thieves into our temple. Let's put things into our bodies that are going to serve us, serve our cellular biology. Let's actually be conscious and intentional about what goes in our mouth, what we swallow, what we drink, what we put on our skin, what we expose our bodies to. Because as many of you know, I spent 22 years as a mortality researcher, and I can tell you emphatically that the reason why the majority of Americans are not living healthier, happier, longer, more fulfilling lives are because of modifiable risk factors that we can change. I love the word lifestyle medicine because lifestyle medicine implies that by changing our lifestyle acts as the medication for our bodies. I deeply believe more in what God gave us than what man makes us. And so we're going to talk about a lot of cellular biology, the science behind it, what the best morning routines are. Should we be oil pulling, tongue scraping? What are the effects of those? We're going to start with the oral cavity. We're going to work our way all the way through the gut because a healthy gut is a healthy biome. And then I'm going to make an offer to you guys to join my VIP community because I'm shifting the entire focus of my adult lifetime now to be in service to my VIP community, because I realize that if I build an army of like-minded people like yourself, and I educate them and inspire them to make a transition, you will go out and educate other people and inspire them to make a transition. So I'm going to spend some time talking about that later, but I'm going to select people from this VIP group, and we are going to, each month, we're going to take a deep dive into the things that are plaguing us. Do you have an autoimmune disease? Do you have Crohn's, irritable bowel syndrome? Are you suffering from anxiety? Are there people in your family that have ADD, ADHD, OCD, manic depression? Do you have people that are on SSRIs? Do you have people that are suffering from ADD or ADHD that have been on Adderall for long periods of time? Do you have people with mold toxicity, metal toxicity, viral pathogens, even these toxicities that we encounter every day in our daily lives that build up in our cellular biology, and we don't know how to get them out of the body? So I'm really going to take this group on a journey. And for just a minute before we start, I want to talk to my female audience for a moment. There's a really scary statistic, and this is facts. I'm happy to link the studies below. But 82% of all autoimmune disease is found in women. Why do women have almost 4 times the rate of autoimmune disease of men? It's because women have a tendency to be more selfless, meaning caregiver syndrome and putting the needs of others before the needs of themselves is a rampant habit of women. I understand you've got kids, you've got husbands, you've got careers, you've got responsibilities, but we're going to talk today about how we can flip that script and talk about how we be selfish in our mornings so that you can be selfless the rest of the day. Because if we care for our biome in the morning, it changes the entire trajectory of our day. So this challenge is designed to give you real science-backed strategies that you can implement immediately. So make sure you've downloaded this PDF. It's entirely free. We're really going to encourage you to join the VIP community at the end of this, and you're going to see the value that I'm going to give to you. But I'm ready to get started, guys. I've lined up some insane guests for you, and our VIP today is going to be Stephen A. Smith. Tomorrow is Dr. Paul Saladino. We've got Dave Asprey that's going to join us. On the third day, Mark Wahlberg is on deck, Lauren Rettinger. We've got so many incredible special guests that we're going to bring to the table for you, because I want you to see the power of small changes in the lives of impactful people, and I want you to hear their words about how this morning routine has impacted their lives. So today we're going to cover the power of the morning routine and how light exposure actually changes your body, and how oral health and meridian. And we're going to talk about something called meridian mapping. Your mouth is the gateway to your entire body, and there are gateways between your oral cavity and almost every single organ system in the body. And I think when we start our morning routine, we wake up in the morning, what is the first thing that we do when we get out of bed? We're going to talk about first light and why getting morning sunlight is the most powerful thing that you can do for your health and how it can reset your circadian biology. But before we even get outside into the light, we should be going in straight out of bed, splashing a little water on our face, and starting our oral care routine. And this is where I think people go wrong. First of all, we put toothpaste on a toothbrush. We don't intentionally think about what kind of toothpaste we're using. We get in there and we think it's a contest to try to scrub the enamel off of our teeth. I'll give you 3 tips about how you can start your brushing routine in the morning. And these are critically important. And if any of you are familiar with dental hygiene, or you're dental hygienist, or you're actually practicing dentist, you know this to be true. First of all of us should be using a toothbrush that's soft. Medium and hard toothbrushes will actually damage and erode the enamel in your tooth, and they're very difficult on our gums. Receding gums are the primary reason why our oral cavity gets infected by things like cavitations, and our microbiome in our oral cavity, a lot of it is contained in the sockets in our gum layer. So the first thing you can do, if you're not already doing it, is tomorrow replace your toothbrush with a soft toothbrush. These are couple of bucks, and it's a game changer in how we're brushing our teeth. The second thing that we can do is we can switch from a fluoride-based toothpaste, which is usually also full of artificial sweeteners, to a toothpaste that is the toothpaste that switches fluoride for something called hydroxyapatite. I want you to look for that on the label of your toothpaste. If you actually spin around a tube of toothpaste, you'll actually see on the back of it, there's a mandatory FDA warning that says, if you swallow this toothpaste, contact poison control immediately. And why do they tell you to contact poison control if you actually swallow toothpaste? They say if there's more than used for brushing is swallowed, contact poison control. And why is that? Because fluoride is a neurotoxin. Fluoride is actually something called fluorosilicic acid. It is the byproduct of industrial fertilizer production. We produce about 230 million metric tons of fertilizer in this country every year for farming and agriculture. And when we produce that fertilizer, there is a toxic compound called fluorosilicic acid that is in that fertilizer that we have to take out because it will burn the root of the plant. We take that fluorosilicic acid and we dump it into our municipal water supply as fluoride. If you go to the National Toxicology Program or you go to the National Institute of Health, you can actually go right there. You can put in the word fluoride and you will see that it is categorized as a neurotoxin. Now, fluoride is also supposed to remineralize your enamel. In other words, we get tiny little pits in our enamel, and inside of these pits, microbiomes embed themselves into those pits, and they begin to erode the enamel and get into the dentin of the tooth. But fluoride only has a marginal impact on this. If you go to your dentist and you get fluoride treatments once a year, that's fine. But brushing your teeth every day with fluoride toothpaste is the first little small shift that we're going to do when we talk about caring for our oral cavity. Second thing that I want to do is I want to talk about the science behind the oral cavity even before we get to light. Can we actually switch up here? Can I actually do something on the board before we get here? Um, I want to walk you through why the next three things that I'm going to talk about are so important. This will only add maybe 2 minutes to your oral routine in the morning. So you've woken up, you splashed water on your face, you brush your teeth with a soft toothbrush with hydroxyapatite, not with fluoride. And now I want to transfer over to this screen, and I want to talk a little bit about why the next part of our morning routine is so important. Can these guys see this? I'm going to blow this up. I want to actually show you a map of the meridians inside of your mouth and show you that our teeth, each one of our teeth can be mapped to different organ systems in the body. Look how many times the colon is mapped to different organ systems in the body. What's really interesting about atherosclerosis and arterial sclerosis, not only plaquing and scarring of the arteries, narrowing of the arteries, but also hardening of the arteries. What's really interesting is now a lot of research is mapping this back to the oral cavity. And why would we map calcium deposits in the arterial wall back to our oral cavity? Well, because there's only two ways that calcium can form into a bone-like structure in our bodies. Remember, our bones are not calcium. Calcium combines with something called phosphorus. It forms a compound called hydroxyapatite, and our bones are hydroxyapatite. In fact, contrary to popular belief, you actually can't make bones with just calcium. Putting people on additional calcium supplements has proved to be futile. I mean, nursing homes all over the world are full of elderly men and elderly women that have been on calcium supplements for 15 or 20 years that are plagued with osteopenia or osteoporosis. But the point that I want to raise is the fact that when there are two types of cellular structures in the body that can actually create bone. One is an osteoclast, which builds bones, and that's inside of your bone. The second one is a bacteria from your mouth. This bacteria in your mouth that can actually create enamels and bones is the exact same bacteria that is found in the arterial wall when we calcify our arteries. So these pathways map directly from our oral cavity directly into our cardiovascular system. So caring for the oral cavity is extraordinarily important. When we look at different teeth and we think, wow, could our teeth actually be affecting our eyesight? Could it be affecting our respiratory rate? Could it be affecting the way that contents move through our colon? The answer is yes. If you know my story, I actually cracked my, I think it was my 13th meridian molar in the back of my mouth. And I called my biologic dentist friend. And he said, hey, send me a picture of it. So I sent him a picture. And when he saw the picture, he sent me this chart. And he said, Gary, do you ever get left anterior shoulder pain? And I go, that's strange. I actually do. He said, do you ever get left lower lobe pain in your lung? Which was really astounding to me because when I was doing HIIT's cardio, I would actually get a catch in my lung, which I attributed to just exercise-induced, a little exercise-induced catch in my lung. And then the third question he asked me absolutely blew my mind. And if you haven't seen my podcast with Dr. Jigar Gandhi, please go watch it because it will absolutely blow your mind how impactful the oral cavity is to the rest of our biome. The third thing he said to me was, does your left toe ever go numb? And that really freaked me out because I hadn't told anyone, not even my wife, that once in a while my left toe would go numb and I would just kind of tap it on the floor. He goes, yeah, that's your tooth meridian. It's mapped to a cavitation, an infection from a root canal that you have below that tooth. I go, how do you know I had a root canal? He said, just by the symptoms that you're telling me. So I actually went and had that tooth removed. I had the root canal cleaned out. He embedded red light therapy. He actually ran ozone gas into my jaw. He packed it full of my own platelets called platelet-rich fibrin. And then he replaced that tooth. And 48 hours after that procedure, all of those symptoms went away. So it's extraordinarily important that we care for our oral cavity. And I'm going to talk about what I think is the best way to care for our oral cavity. This is a cutaway view of the nervous system that innervates your teeth and how it originates and corresponds with the brain. Look at the number of pathways between the oral cavity and your eyes, your nose, your olfactory bulbs in your brain, and direct pathways into your brain. You know, we're starting to believe now that the genesis of a lot of early onset cognitive decline are these neuroinflammatory conditions in the body. When microbes migrate from the mouth into these areas in these neuronal pathways, they can go directly into the brain. So caring for our oral cavity is absolutely important. We're not specifically covering biological dentistry on this, but if you actually have mercury fillings in your mouth right now, I would really suggest contacting a biologic dentist and getting those replaced with amalgamate or with porcelain. If you have had a root canal, there is a 100% chance that you have an infection in your jaw. 100% chance. It's called a cavitation. Dentists are the only area of medical practice in the world that believes that you can leave dead tissue in the body. No other area of medicine believes that you can leave dead tissue in the body and ignore it. If your appendicitis dies, you need to take the appendix out. If any of your organ systems or tissue becomes necrotic, meaning it's dead, you have to take that out of the body. But we believe that we can kill the roots and the blood supply to a tooth, and we can just leave that alone in the body. The reason why it's painless is because you don't have a nerve there anymore, and the blood supply actually retreats, and it becomes a breeding ground for bacteria. So one of the greatest tips that I could give you guys, if you have root canals, please go see a biologic dentist and get those replaced. If you want to see something gross, I'm actually waiting on a tooth on this side. Can they see this if I actually show them? Okay, so I won't show you. I won't open my mouth and show you, but I actually have a cap here and I'm actually waiting to have the tooth put on it. I'm a deep believer in this. But this gives you a little bit of insight into how our oral cavity innervates the rest of our body. So let's talk about two things I want you to add to your morning routine that you likely are not doing right now. One is tongue scraping and one is actually oil pulling. These are dirt cheap alternatives to add to your morning routine. And we're going to be so intentional about every step of our way. We use a soft toothbrush. We use hydroxyapatite toothpaste. The next thing that we do is after we brush our teeth for the first time, we're going to take a tongue scraper and scrape our tongue. I went out and I actually wondered if there was any clinical research on the effectiveness of tongue cleaning. And I'm going to link these studies for you so you guys can see these. There is a meta-analysis on tongue cleaning methods, which is a comparative clinical trial employing a toothbrush and a tongue scraper. And I'll just take you to the conclusion section. All of these studies I'm going to link for you. But basically, the tongue scraper showed a 75% reduction in VSCs, which are volatile sulfur compounds, versus the toothbrush alone category. So we're brushing our teeth, but we're leaving seething bacteria that embeds itself into our tongue. Our tongue is moist. The back of our mouth is dark. It's oxygen deprived, and it can become a breeding ground for bacteria. The best kind of tongue scraper to use is a really cheap copper tongue scraper. You can get these at CVS. You can get them at Walgreens. So you're going to brush your teeth with a soft brush. You're going to use hydroxyapatite toothpaste, and then you're just going to scrape your tongue. You're going to be shocked what comes off if you haven't done this before. This is going to lower the VSCs in the volatile sulfur compounds in your oral cavity so that they don't have the gases that are needed to breed bacteria. Really interesting study. The second thing I want to talk about is something called oil pulling. And the oil pulling it's a part of Ayurvedic medicine. Ayurvedic medicine is an Indian form of medicine. It's actually the oldest form of medicine in the world. It's based on observation. They put you into categories like Pitta, Pitta Kapha. Well, things kind of freaking out a little bit there. There it goes. It doesn't like it when I make it too big. But I'm going to send you a clinical study on the effect of oil pulling with coconut oil to improve dental hygiene and oral health. This was a systemic review of multiple clinical studies, and essentially it had 182 participants. There were 42 eligible studies. I mean, this is an excellent study for you, for those of you that don't believe that putting a little bit of raw, organic, extra virgin coconut oil, cold pressed coconut oil in your mouth, about a half a tablespoon, and swishing it between your gums can have a major impact on your oral health. So you've scraped your tongue now, you've gotten the VSCs out of your mouth, these volatile sulfur compounds, and now we're just going to take dirt cheap. You can actually get it at Costco. They have tubs of extra virgin, cold pressed, organic coconut oil. Please do not, some of these studies were actually done with seed oils. Please don't use seed oils. They're very pro-inflammatory. You know how I feel about seed oils. You take these canola plants and these rape seeds and these other plants, and you put them in a commercial press. And because the substance that comes out is very gummy, what happens is they have to degum it with hexane. Hexane is one of the most powerful neurotoxins that we know of. And after they degum it with hexane, they take that oil and they heat it to 405 degrees, which turns it rancid. And once that oil is rancid, it's now putrefied and it smells. So they have to deodorize it. They deodorize it with sodium hydroxide, a very powerful carcinogen. So you take a neurotoxin and a carcinogen used to degum and deodorize an oil that you've made putrid and rancid by heating it to temperatures that that plant and that seed or that oil cannot encounter on the surface of the earth. I get so much pushback on social media when I start talking about the negative impact of seed oils. And very often I'm not attacking the plant. I'm attacking the distance from the plant to your table. A lot of what we talk about in my community is how do we just get around the system? You know, people say, well, gosh, sunflower seeds can't hurt you. Well, no, sunflower seeds in their raw form can't hurt you. But when you put them in commercial presses, you add hexane, sodium hydroxide, and then about a quarter of the oil that we see on the shelf, especially vegetable oils, has been additionally bleached. And then your American Heart Association does you the favor of sticking a beautiful little picture of a smiling heart on there, and it calls it a heart healthy oil. It is anything but heart healthy. I'm going to go down that road in another talk. But these were randomized controlled trials, and it suggested that oil pulling with coconut oil may have a beneficial effect on improving oral health and dental hygiene. It says that further clinical studies are needed. So I actually went and pulled several of these clinical studies up. There is a study, a research article on coconut oil, specifically another one this was just looking at different types of oils. And this one, they did use seed oils, but they were only measuring the microbiome and the health of the gums. So in the mornings, we're going to brush with a soft toothbrush. We're going to use a hydroxyapatite toothpaste. We're going to add a tongue scraper to our morning routine, and we're going to add oil pulling. All right, your morning routine for oral health is done. Let's move to phase two. Phase two, we're going to start talking about light. And the reason why I want to talk about light is that we are very photovoltaic beings. If you haven't heard me talk about this before, light is very powerful when it passes through our skin. I'm going to talk about what we do in dark climates as well. But let's talk about why getting morning sunlight is the most powerful thing that you can do for your morning routine. As you wake up in the morning, a waking hormone called cortisol is beginning to rise in your bloodstream. It's also rising in your brain. The sleep hormone, melatonin, is starting to fall off. There's a second hormone that's also, there's a second compound, sorry, that's also rising in your body when you wake up in the morning called adenosine. I'm going to come back to that in a second because we're going to talk about delaying our caffeine for 60 to 90 minutes in the morning. And if you're like my wife, that was a really tough one to accept. But we're going to talk about the physiology of our morning routine and why it's so important to do things in a certain sequence. So you're done with your toothbrushing. Now, for me, I go right away and I get into a cold plunge. Before I even go outside and get my first light in the morning, if you don't have a cold plunge or you can't afford a cold plunge, don't worry about it. You can make a cold plunge simply by taking Tupperware containers the night before, filling them full of water, seal them, and put them in your refrigerator or put them in your freezer. Overnight, when these freeze, you can drop these ice blocks into your tub, and in about 30 minutes, you're going to have a perfect cold plunge. In an average tub in your house, that cold plunge will last 3 days. Remember, a cold plunge only needs to be 58 degrees to technically be a cold plunge. Colder is not better, and longer is not better. I cold plunge for 3 minutes minimum, 6 minutes maximum, and I use 50 degree. My water is at 50 degrees. And I'm going to explain that why in a second. So as soon as I'm done my oral routine, I do the difficult thing first and I get straight into cold plunge. If you don't have a tub that you could, freeze ice blocks of, from a Tupperware container, and you don't have a cold plunge, you can also use a cold shower. The majority of you are not going to do this for one reason, because you are aggressively pursuing comfort. I have a saying that aging is the aggressive pursuit of comfort. Cold therapy is one of the best hormetic stresses and safest hormetic stresses we can apply to the body. But when we do it wrong, we start to become cold adaptive and we don't just cold shock the body. So why would we want to go right from brushing our teeth to either getting in a cold shower or getting into a cold tub? Here's the 5 reasons. When we immerse the body in cold water, or we expose the body to cold water, remember, water is 29 times more thermogenic than air, which means that water removes heat from the body at 29 times the rate that air does. So when you remove heat that fast, areas of the body begin to panic, right? The liver, for example, and the brain think maybe you were walking on a sheet of ice and you broke through into a cold lake. What's the body going to do to save your life? First thing that's going to happen is you're going to have a massive peripheral vasoconstriction. Your arteries are going to constrict because they're smooth muscle. They're going to force all the blood into the core, liver, lungs, pancreas, kidneys, and up to your brain, which is very good for you. It's going to hypercirculate and keep the core of your body warm. The second thing that's going to happen is your liver is going to panic, and it's going to dump something called cold shock proteins into your bloodstream. Cold shock proteins are some of the most powerful reserve proteins that we have in the body. There are two of them in particular, LIN, L-I-N 28A, and LIN 28B that I've been researching or reading the research on. I haven't been conducting the research, but I've been reading the research on. And these are directly linked to improving your insulin sensitivity. What if just getting in cold water could raise your metabolism, improve your mood, spike your dopamine, reduce fat, improve your insulin sensitivity, and elevate your emotional state? That's what cold water exposure is going to do for you. After these cold shock proteins hit your bloodstream, they begin to scour the body of free radical oxidation. They can also increase the rate of protein synthesis, which is muscle repair. So if you had a hard workout the night before, you're actually improving the rate at which your muscles are repairing. It's also a great way to prepare for your morning exercise routine. The third thing it's going to do, it's going to activate something called brown fat. We have two types of fat in our body. We have multiple locations, visceral fat, body fat, but mainly two types of fat in the body. One is white fat, which we're all familiar with because that's the ones you see around your middle. And then there's a type of fat called brown fat. Brown fat is a super specific type of fat that exchanges a calorie for heat. You know that a calorie, the definition of a calorie is it's actually a measure of heat. You measure 1 cubic centimeter of water and the amount of energy it takes to raise it 1 degree centigrade. That's what a calorie is. Calorie is a measure of energy, and it's derived by measuring the amount of heat. So if you actually remove heat from the body and drop your body temperature, there is a cost to your body going back to the normal temperature. If you're in a 50-degree tub and you get out into 75-degree air, how does your body go back to 98.6 degrees? How does your body temperature exceed the ambient temperature of the room you're in? Well, brown fat will take calories and exchange it for heat. So yes, cold plunging does accelerate caloric burn. It also skyrockets your metabolism. So you have a cold shock protein release, you have a peripheral vasoconstriction, you have the exchange of brown fat turning calories into heat, and then at the same time you get a spike in dopamine. I've actually seen clinical studies comparing cocaine to cold plunging. I don't know where they got these people or where they did this study because it probably would be illegal in every state, but somehow they looked at the brains of people that were actually using amphetamines and cocaine, and the brains of people that had dopamine levels rise. And there was a substantial lengthening in the time frame of the dopamine release from cold plunging versus even using illicit drugs. That's why I call it my drug of choice. It will keep you in the best mood for longer. Those of you that are doing cold plunging on a regular basis, you know that you can be in a bad mood getting into a cold plunge. You cannot be in a bad mood getting out of a cold plunge. So just think about what you've done for your body, and you're barely 15 minutes into your day. You've flossed, you've scraped your tongue, you've done some oil pulling, you've used a soft toothbrush, you've used hydroxyapatite. Now you've moved from caring for your oral microbiome and for your gums and for your oral cavity, and now you've moved and gotten yourself straight into a cold plunge. Developing that discipline is super important, guys. Your morning routine should be something that is portable, that you can take with you anywhere in the world. You know, one of my favorite travel tips is that our morning routine should be portable. You see me post about how I'll do 9 cities in 11 days. Sometimes these cities are on opposite sides of the world, multiple time zones, flying for 5 hours to 15 or 16 hours and still maintaining very elevated sleep scores above 95%. How do we do that? Our bodies crave routine. And the morning routine is the most important. I'm also going to talk about bookending your sleep by having a good sleep routine. But now we've gotten into a cold plunge. I get out of the cold plunge, I dry off, I put on dry shorts, and that's when we go outside, if we can get outside, and we get morning sunlight into our eyes. Your body has a built-in clock. It's called the circadian rhythm. It not only controls your sleep, but it controls your hormone production, controls your metabolism, it even controls your mental clarity. And the way you set this clock every morning is with light. We are extraordinarily photovoltaic beings. I'm going to talk first about what natural light does when it hits your skin and your eyes in the morning. I'm going to send you the clinical studies that show that it improves your sleep. Amazing study done by Whoop, where they actually had Whoop participants log and track their morning sunlight. And they logged and tracked alcohol consumption, meals before bed, lighting in the room, temperature in the room, blue light in bed, sleep mask, mouth tape. They tracked all kinds of different variables. The single most important variable that impacted their sleep score that night, meaning not the previous evening, but the evening that they're going to sleep, was morning sunlight. Now, I know a lot of you are in darker, colder climates, but it's super important for you to just get your drapes open and just get natural light into your eyes. If you can, and it's too cold to go outside, open the door and let natural sunlight hit your eyes. What happens when natural sunlight hits your eyes? Well, when light passes through your eyes, it begins the natural process of continuing the elevation of cortisol and the suppression of melatonin. Adenosine also begins to rise. Adenosine is what caffeine competes with in the brain, the receptors it competes with, because adenosine is what makes you sleepy. The higher the adenosine, the more effective the caffeine. And this is why delaying your coffee in the morning is a better idea to avoid your morning crash than waking up and going straight to the coffee maker. That's not being intentional about our mornings. So we've gotten out of a cold plunge, and now we're going to expose our eyes to sunlight. I'm going to talk about what happens when sunlight hits our skin too. For those of you that are in really dark climates, or you're doing shift work, or you don't have morning light in the at the time that you wake up in the morning, here's 3 things that you can do that will help that situation. You may want to write this down. You can use a 10,000 lux, L-U-X, light therapy box within 30 minutes of waking. If you've ever seen Brian Johnson, who gets up before the sun, he walks into his bathroom and he turns on this big light that looks like it's a white light. These are inexpensive lights. You can put it right by your sink, and you can actually get this light into your eyes right when you wake up while you're brushing your teeth. If you're blessed enough to be in a climate or have a routine where you can actually wake up with the sunlight in the morning, that's the best time to get sunlight. Remember, the first 45 to 60 minutes of the day is called first light. First light has no UVA and no UVB rays. So none of the damaging rays that will actually cause skin cancer. It also has high amounts of healthy blue light, not the blue wavelengths that we get from our screens, which actually raise our cortisol. It has healthy blue wavelengths from the sun. And even without the UVA and UVB, we can actually generate some vitamin D. So number 1, I would say good is using a Lux Therapy light box, a 10,000 Lux Light Therapy light box within 30 minutes of waking. Better would be to actually expose your eyes to direct sunlight, meaning open the curtains and open the window, open the door, walk outside. The third would be to expose your eyes and your skin to sunlight, because when we expose our skin to sunlight, a really magical thing happens in our body. Can we actually go back to the screen? I want to talk about something else that is super important and majorly overlooked. If we actually look at our circulatory system in the body, right, and we look at our arteries and we look at our veins, here's a little known fact, unless you're one of my VIPs. When we look at our circulatory system, right, and we look at the arteries, we look at the veins, What very few cardiologists even talk about, what very few physicians or functional medicine doctors even talk about, is that the heart is only circulating 30% of the blood in our body. This entire part of our circulatory system, we're about 14% arteries, we're about 11.5% veins, give or take. This is the major part of our circulatory system. This is done by our heart. The heart puts pressure behind these arteries and pressure behind these veins, but this is only 30% of our circulation. The question is, where does the other 70% of our circulation come from? If none of us has a heart that's strong enough to pump blood from the center of our center of our chest to the tip of our toes, through to the tip of our fingers, through our liver, our lungs, our pancreas, our kidneys, and our brain, what circulates the other 70% of our body? Well, these arteries and these veins dump into a smaller system called our capillaries, right? And these are really tiny arteries, really tiny veins. And guess what? They don't have pressure behind them. 70% of your circulation is not done by the heart. It's done by something called vasomotion. It's done by, what is the next? Can I bring up a slide here? It's done by something called vasomotion. I want you to think of a snake swallowing a mouse. So blood is inside of here, and a bolus of blood is actually pulsed and moved down this capillary system. It's done by vasomotor or vasomotion activity. What improves the tiny little vasomotor and vasomotion activities in our body? 70% of our circulatory system, which brings me back to one of my favorite topics, like hypertension. If you or a loved one has ever been diagnosed with hypertension, you've likely been diagnosed with something called idiopathic hypertension, hypertension of an unknown origin. And why is it an unknown origin? Because they went over here and looked at the 30% of your circulatory system that was done by the heart. And they said, wow, there's no blockages, there's no atherosclerosis, there's no arteriosclerosis, which is why your EKG is normal, why your EEG is normal, why your heart sounds are normal, why your lung sounds are normal, and why if you had advanced studies like a cardiac cath was normal, a dye contrast study was normal. Well, guess what all that was doing was looking at 30% of our circulatory system. And when they can't figure out why you have high blood pressure, they're going to look at your ancestors and they're going to say you have high blood pressure because your aunt had it and your uncle had it and your grandfather had it, which means that you have familial hypertension. That's one of the things that drives me nuts, because there is no gene being passed on from your ancestors that is giving you that condition. Why aren't we looking at the other 70% of our circulatory system over here? I mean, if I had a problem with my circulatory system and I could check out the 70% or the 30%, I would probably go here first. It's like if I had two guys that I was investigating for a crime and there was a 70% chance this guy did it and only a 30% chance this guy did it, I'd be looking at this guy first. But that's not what we do. We look at the vasculature, we look at the major arterial system, and there's rarely the complications there that tell us why we're having complications somewhere else. So why is it important to care for this microvascular circulation? Because these are the microvasculature that innervate your lungs. Think about how small a capillary has to be to touch the surface of your lung, exchange a gas with your lung, and not bleed into your lungs. That's how tiny these arteries are. They're smaller than a human hair, so small that liquid doesn't leak out of them, but gases can be exchanged across membranes with them, called the alveoli. So this is what's innervating 70% of our body: our skin, our hair follicles, our liver, our lungs, our pancreas, our kidneys, our brain. This is all microvasculature. Why do most people start wearing readers between the ages of 40s and their mid-50s? Sometimes it's in their 60s, but between the early 40s and mid-50s, most people start to wear readers. Is something happening to their eyes? Are their eyes changing shape? Is the pressure changing shape? Did something happen to the cornea? No. Very often it's the microvasculature supplying the back of the eyes. So what is really good for our microvasculature? What helps our microvasculature? How can we improve the health of the 70% of our circulatory system? Well, let me promise you, it's not hypertension medication. Okay, it's not beta blockers, it's not calcium channel blockers, it's not ACE inhibitors, it's not diuretics, it's not any of those things that are addressing the heart or the major circulatory system. It's these 5 things. So the best things for our microvasculature are the following: light, and specifically sunlight. When sunlight passes through your skin, there are wavelengths from the sun that pass through your skin. They hit that microvasculature, they hit that microvascular system, and they cause a gas that's in your mitochondria to be released in these tiny little microvessels. And it is called mitochondrial nitric oxide. Mitochondrial nitric oxide is a gas, and inside of your mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of your cells, which powers all human beings, inside of this little organelle called the mitochondria, there is a site where oxygen can bind or nitrogen, nitric oxide can bind. I want you to think of this site, which is called cytochrome C oxidase. I want you to think of this site as a one-armed man. Okay, so he can either shake hands with this gas, nitric oxide, or he can shake hands with this gas called oxygen. If I can get him to let go of nitric oxide and grab oxygen, I get a 16-fold step up in cellular energy. Guess what happens to the nitric oxide? It leaves the mitochondria. When it leaves the mitochondria, it spills over into the blood. After it spills into the blood, it hits the arterial wall. And if you know anything about nitric oxide, what happens when nitric oxide hits the arterial wall? The arterial wall relaxes. We call this vasodilation. It's actually not a dilating, it's not an expanding of the blood vessel, it's actually a relaxing of the blood vessel. So just by getting light in the morning, I can actually relax the microvasculature and improve my circulation. Incredible. This is also why I use a red light bed, but I'm going to give you, this is why I am such a fan of red light therapy. Red light therapy is about to become the panacea of longevity. But without going out and spending a ton of money on a red light therapy bed, you can expose your skin to sunlight. If you want to take it to the next level, find a clinic around you that actually has a red light bed that allows you to use it on a membership basis. What's crazy is I'm starting to see these in gyms and wellness centers and spas and some of these social wellness places where you can actually go and buy a membership and lay in a red light bed. Absolutely therapeutic. The second thing is cold heat exposure. Yes, these tiny little vessels can constrict and they can dilate. They constrict and they dilate. And just like a garden hose that you just lay out in the yard and allow to dry rot and harden, our arteries in our veins they have an elasticity to them. It's called vascular laxity. So how can I improve the vascular laxity? I can actually expose my skin to sunlight or get in a red light bed, or I can expose myself to cold and to heat. By vasodilating and vasoconstricting, this is what we're going to actually exercise this microvascular circulation. There are a few supplements that it also responds to. One is called TMG. That's trimethylglycine. If you have hypertension, you know how I feel about this amino acid. This is an amino acid that actually helps to remove homocysteine from the blood. Very good for the microvascular circulation. And another one called resveratrol. And another one called resveratrol. So these are all amazing things that we can do for our microvasculature. And the last thing is, which we're going to talk about, is minerals and hydration. Okay, so when we get inflammation in the body, and we know that inflammation is the root of all evil, why is inflammation so detrimental? Why is having histamines and cytokines and prostaglandin E2s and inflammatory factors in your body so damaging? By the way, why don't we get atherosclerosis or arterial sclerosis in this microvasculature? I'm going to explain that in a second. So when we think about the 70% of our circulation that the heart's not caring for, we have to independently care for this part of our circulatory system. The complications that come from getting inflammation in these tiny little vessels, Remember, you have 63,000 miles of blood vessel in your body. 63,000 miles. If we're not caring for our microvasculature, what happens is you get a small amount of vasoconstriction from the from these arteries. So I'm going to show you what my top solution is for this. It's not just minerals and H2O, it's hydrogen gas. And you know what a huge fan of hydrogen gas I am. These are H2 tabs. I'm a big fan of hydrogen water. I have nothing to sell you guys today, but I'm going to show you a demonstration of why hydrogen gas, which you can bathe in or that you can add to your water, is such a game changer. I've been a big fan of these hydrogen water bottles, but I got so much flack on social media because these are like $250 or $275. So I went deep down the rabbit hole of how else can we create high part per million hydrogen gas and not charge, not have to spend $250 or $275 on a water bottle and charge it. And the answer is elemental magnesium. So I want to actually show you this. So elemental magnesium, if you've never actually seen this, this is actually what elemental, where's the camera? This is what elemental magnesium looks like. Can you focus on that? Yep. It's beautiful. It actually, well, let me hold it here. You can see it. See how it looks like a fern? See how it actually grows like it actually looks like a fern? This is an elemental magnesium. This is what elemental magnesium looks like. First of all, the majority of us, probably nearly every one of you, unless you've been following me for a while on this Zoom, is deficient in magnesium. Magnesium is good for our gut. It's good for our brain. It's one of the healthiest light metals in the human body. It's involved in over 300 biological transactions in our body, and it comes from Mother Earth. And our soil and our food supply is so magnesium deficient. So when you take this and you press it into a tablet, it effervesces into high part per million hydrogen water. So I want to show this to you. Some of my VIP community, you guys have seen this, so just bear with me for a second. If I want to measure, if I stick this in this water and I want to measure, can you zoom in on this possibly? Okay, I want to show you guys why I'm such a fan of this. If you want to measure whether or not something is causing inflammation or reducing inflammation, you can measure its ORP, its oxidative reduction potential. So what I did was I put this into the water and it has a positive 105. Can they see that? Can you hold it up to hold it towards you?
But can you hold it up to the camera?
Oh, just hold it to the camera.
Well, no, like the water. Like do it in front
I
of
mean,
hold the cup in that and then bring it closer.
Bring it closer to the camera. Sorry, my production team's trying to show you this. I want to show you this in real time, guys. So what does that say? 109. So this is Mountain Valley spring water, one of my favorite types of spring water. So I'm a huge fan of Mountain Valley, but that water is going to cause some inflammation, right? Because if something has a positive oxidative reduction potential, it's causing inflammation. If it has a negative oxidative reduction potential, it is reducing inflammation. Blueberries are antioxidants because they donate ions and reduce inflammation. Vitamin C is an antioxidant because it donates ions and reduces inflammation. So in the morning, if I just took one of these hydrogen tablets, and these will cost you less than $1 a day. If I took one of these hydrogen tablets and I dropped it into that same glass of water and I measured the ORP, I want to see this number. Hold on, let me try to follow it around here. I would like to see this number go negative. So I want to show you this.
Negative 334.
Negative 334.
Negative 376.
Negative 376. So basically in 5 seconds,
Negative 400.
It's negative 400. Wow. So this is making 12 part per million hydrogen water. So what's that going to do? When you put these ions into the body, guys, you are massively reducing your inflammation, which is feeding your microvascular circulation. So first thing in the morning, you don't have to do anything else but take a hydrogen tablet and drop it in your water. So those of you that are currently a part of my VIP program, I am so excited about this that I'm literally sending every single one of you a box of these for free. They're about 29 bucks. If you sign up to become one of my VIPs today, if you join the VIP program, I'm going to send you, we've got what, 2,000 people on here? We've got 4,000 people. Okay, so this is going to cost me a lot of money. There's no obligation for you to buy this, guys. I want to change the world. Elemental magnesium in your water, creating 12 part per million hydrogen water, will reduce inflammation, improve your circulation. There's incredible clinical studies, which I am going to link in the show notes below, so you can read them yourselves. For you science nerds that want to challenge this, I want you to go to hydrogenstudies.com and look at the 1,335 peer-reviewed clinical studies on there. You can deselect animal trials and just look at human trials. Those studies, 25 of those were done with this exact elemental magnesium tablet. I am never on here to push products. That's why every single one of you that are VIPs of mine, I'm sending you a box of these for free. Make sure that my team knows your address. Any one of you that joins up to be a VIP and comes with us into the private room, I'm also sending you one of these. So I'm going to send it to you for free. If you don't find that it makes a material change, then just don't order it. But 12 part per million hydrogen is higher than the concentration we could reach in those $300 hydrogen bottles, and it's less than $1 a day. Super interesting clinical study that was published in the Journal of Experimental Gerontology. And in this study, which they did on 70-year-olds and older folks, they measured markers of longevity like telomere lengthening. It lengthened their telomeres. They measured certain compounds like brain-derived neurotrophic factor in the frontal lobes of the brain. They actually used a marker called TET2 to actually measure how well their methylation pathways were affected. It improved methylation, the conversion of compounds into the active form that the body can use. They looked at their circulation. They even looked at their sit-stand ratio. Sarcopenia, age-related muscle wasting in older ages, is one of the hallmarks of frailty and one of the hallmarks risks for mortality, like grip strength. And so they measured their actual sit-stand ratio, and that also improved. So the number of inflammatory markers that they measured, C-reactive protein, creatine phosphokinase, filtration rates through the kidney, were all improved in the control group versus the placebo group using nothing but hydrogen gas. So if there's one tip that I can give you, one product that I say is a must-have for your morning routine, it would be a hydrogen water tablet. Unless you already have one of those hydrogen bottles or you're already onto that tip, that will be a game changer for you. Wow, I cannot believe that we already burned an hour. I just talked off the top of my head. Guys, we still have 2 days left of this. We're going to take my VIPs. We're going to go into the VIP room now with Stephen A. Smith. I'm going to take your questions live. Those of you that are not VIPs, please join the community. I am trying to build an army of like-minded people. I want to take you on this journey with me. I want to educate and inspire you so you make a transition in your life. And then together, we're going to build an army of people that are doing this, getting this information out there to the masses so we can have a massive effect on humanity. Aside from my role in the Make America Healthy Again program, I don't know a better way to build an authentic community that could really change the face of humanity. So please join us. I'll send you a box of H2 tabs absolutely free. You can be maybe my next test subject that comes up on the stage, signs the medical releases, and we start fixing the challenges that you and your family are facing. We'll do it live in real time: mold, mycotoxins, metals, autoimmune, all kinds of conditions. I'm going to bring qualified health professionals to the table. I'm not licensed to practice medicine. I'm not going to do these on my own, but we are going to educate you guys to put the hope back in humanity that the body can heal itself. We're going to restore the faith that in the power that this has over our bodies. So that's a wrap on day one, guys. The free session. If you learned something today, imagine what we're diving into in the VIP group. I want to thank you all for joining. Please use the Sunlight Tracker. I will see you back here tomorrow afternoon at the same time. The next 2 days is also absolutely free. Now, all my VIPs, we're going to take a deep dive into my personal morning routine, and we're going to have a special VIP session with Stephen A. Smith, and I'm going to give you the free code for your H2 tabs. Those of you that are joining my VIP community, you will also get the free code for H2 tabs, and I'll see you guys in there, or I will see you tomorrow. All right, guys, welcome back. VIPs, first off, if you're a VIP, thank you for being here. If you just upgraded, thank you for upgrading and being here. You've made the decision to really invest in yourself, and that alone sets you apart. So now some of you know this session is raw and it's unfiltered. So I'm going to walk you through exactly what my morning routine's like, why I do what I do, and how you can build a routine that really works for you. I always try to give the most practical advice possible. If you don't have the money for a cold plunge, or what if you don't even have a tub? How can we incorporate some of these things? I gave you some of my best biohacks this morning. The feedback on the session is really amazing. But what I'm most excited about is this group. You guys are who I'm going to pour the balance of my adult lifetime into, because I really believe that if I can educate the masses and inspire them, people like yourselves, then we can make a massive impact in this world. I got a couple questions about where Dana White is. Dana White was locked in, but he had a last minute overseas commitment. So he's still obviously all in on this movement. He's going to be back with us soon, but no distractions. This lineup is next level. Stephen A. Smith is going to be on in 30 minutes. Paul Saladino tomorrow. Dave Asprey and Lauren Redinger are going to bring the heat this week over the next few days. And obviously there's no charge for any of those. So let's stay focused and locked in, and let's get ready to level up. So we're going to go a little deeper into our personal morning routine. I want to answer a couple of questions because these were the most common questions that you guys submitted. I also want to talk to you VIPs. I'm going to spend 2 hours on with you guys today. At the end of the second hour, if those of you that want to stick around, I want to spend just a few minutes, maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and I want to get some feedback from you, because as you know, I've parted ways with my previous clinic operation. When I did that, I took a major step down in my income, but I did it because of the purpose and the passion I have and what I believe to be God's calling for me. And it was not aligned with the type of testing and the expense that they wanted to push onto those patients and onto our clients. And I believe that this can be 100 times more impactful than anything I was doing there. Last night at Mar-a-Lago, they sold a private session with me for $90,000. And it just dawned on me how many people are just so desperate for this information. So few people can afford that kind of money, pay $50,000 to get a private hour of my time. But so what I'm going to do is start to pare those down almost to zero. And I'm going to start to pour everything into this community. And what we're going to do is, at the beginning of the month, we're going to select a topic. Maybe it's mold detox, or gut health, or maybe it's on autoimmune condition like Hashimoto's or Crohn's disease or ADD or ADHD. And I'm going to ask for some volunteers to be very vulnerable and to allow the entire community to go on this journey with them. And if we can select you, I'll have you sign the proper medical releases so that we can disclose your health information. That's going to be a part of, becoming one of the candidates. And at no cost to you, we're going to bring you up on the stage, for lack of better words. I'm going to bring a qualified healthcare licensed practitioner to the table who is licensed to practice that type of medicine in the state that you reside. And right in front of this community, we are going to start walking people out of these conditions that they've been plagued with, that they thought they had to live with for the rest of their lives. And in real time, over a 10 or 12-week period, we're going to watch people go from heavy metal toxicity to back to normal, from mold or mycotoxin or hormonal imbalance or autoimmune conditions. And we're going to see it. There's nothing more real, more visceral, more impactful, just more truthful than actually taking people like you and solving the challenges that they have in their life in real time, so that everyone can see, well, what supplements did we put them on? What modalities did they use? What procedures did they go through to actually permanently put these conditions in their rearview mirror? And I think this is going to be so inspiring. I'm so excited about it. And I'm only going to do it in this community. I'm going to start doing a lot more behind the scenes, really a lot more videos and engagement with this community, because I think if we can build this from where it is now, which is a 2,000 or 3,000 people, to 10,000 people over the next few months, to 100,000 people, to potentially even 1 million people around the world that we are in service to on a regular basis. I can bring the top minds in functional medicine, biooptimization, longevity. We also will have power as a community. So no longer when brands come to me and want to negotiate to be on my platform, am I going to negotiate on my own personal behalf. I'm going to start to negotiate on your behalf. I'm going to drive value back into this community so that you guys can benefit from this as much as I can, because I believe if I pour my personal wealth and my time and my energy into this community and I educate and inspire you, we're going to literally change the world. So let's get into some questions, guys. And I want your feedback on that. I want you to tell me, like, I want you to help me structure this so that it is the most impactful and the most in service to you guys. So the first question was, how important is morning consistency when optimizing mental health and physical performance? Well, that is a really good question. You know, Einstein said that compounding interest was the eighth wonder of the world. He said, and I might be bastardizing what he said, but he said compound interest was the eighth wonder of the world. He said the people that harness it will benefit from it, and the people that don't understand it will pay for it. And I believe when we're talking about optimal health and biooptimization, that the compounding of consistency is just like the compounding of interest that Einstein talked about. I believe that the compounding of consistency is the eighth wonder of the world. And what do I mean by that? I believe that life is not a collection of goals. Life is a collection of habits. And if you show me your habits, I can tell you exactly where you're going to be 12 months from now, 36 months from now, 5 years from now. In fact, one of the things that we use to predict mortality were what we call demographic data, lifestyle choices that people were making. And someone who is in a routine of making poor lifestyle choices has a very, very, very slim chance of ever changing those habitual patterns. Why? Because they actually don't develop the habits that align with the goals that they want. So if your goal is to lose weight, you should immediately develop the habits of someone that is going to lose weight. If you don't develop the habits of someone losing weight, you'll never actually reach the goal of actually your weight loss. And this is so true in optimal health. You know, one of my favorite stories, I tell it all the time, was Ed Milet's story about his father's struggle with addiction. And when he was a young boy, he asked his dad, who'd been an addict for many years and had gotten sober, he asked his dad, he said, "Dad, are you ever going to drink again?" And his dad would always say, "I don't know, son, but I'm not going to drink for one more day." And what he meant by that was, we're just going to break this down into small, consistent habits, right? So this morning routine is something that should be non-negotiable for you. Women, you really need to listen up, because you are so much more affected by autoimmune and by caregiver syndrome and by putting the needs of others in front of yourself, because you think that is being selfless. But we have to care for ourselves first and then give the rest of our day away. My staff knows that the first 90 minutes of every day belongs to me. The reason why I can show up for things like this and talk off the top of my head for 2 hours or 3 hours and go do hours of research and really plan these sessions for you guys is because I'm in service to myself first, not my wife, not my kids, not my career, not even this VIP group. After that 90 minutes, I give the balance of my day away. And that has been such a game changer for me. And I put some bookends on my life. I schedule meetings and travel around sleep and exercise. One thing that is consistent in my life is my morning routine and my sleep routine. These are portable things that I take with me, and they serve my cellular biology. So morning consistency is the most important thing in optimizing mental health and physical performance, because one of the most disruptive things that has happened to humanity over the last 25 years because of blue light, electronic devices, social media, is that we have gotten out of touch with the normal circadian cycle of Mother Nature. We've lost touch with Mother Nature. We've lost touch with each other. My eventual goal for myself is to sell this big, beautiful condo I'm sitting in here in Miami and buy a regenerative farm. I even have my eye on the regenerative farm that I want to buy in 3 years. So you guys are going to watch this unfold. And then I'm going to start bringing people out to a farm so they can pet a cow, touch the surface of the earth, get some sunlight, eat some lettuce raw off the plant, go horseback riding, take a walk in nature, all of those things that really, really serve our cellular biology. But one of the best of them, because we have busy lives, is to get into a good circadian routine. If someone only has 10 minutes in the morning to optimize their day, what should they prioritize? What they should do is learn to biostack, right? So there's certain things that you're going to do. You're going to take a shower. You're going to hydrate. You're going to drink. I mean, hopefully you're going to have some water in the morning. You're going to eat. You're going to brush your teeth. So how do we get the most out of those? We talked about it today. Don't just brush your teeth. Scrape your tongue, use a soft toothbrush, use hydroxyapatite toothpaste, and do a minute or two of oil pulling. Sometimes they say you need to oil pull for 15 or 20 minutes, but consistency over time is better than duration. So if every morning you took a scoop of extra virgin coconut oil, cold pressed coconut oil, and put it in your mouth, or extra virgin olive oil, and you just oil pulled with that, you did some tongue scraping, you dropped to a soft toothbrush and switched to hydroxyapatite, you haven't added a minute or deducted a minute from that 10 minutes, but now you've just biostacked, you've gotten the best out of what you can get for that short period of time, right? You're not going to add 15 more minutes to your oral care routine. You're just going to do the best oral care routine. So if you only have 10 minutes, I would say definitely do the oral care routine. And then I would think about also a cold shower is an absolute must, and getting sunlight into your eyes. 3 or 4 minutes is enough. 6 to 12 minutes is optimal, but 3 or 4 minutes of direct sunlight. These photoreceptors respond immediately to sunlight. Delay your caffeine exposure. That will not add to your morning routine, 60 to 90 minutes. The reason for this is that the molecule adenosine, which actually makes you sleepy, caffeine competes with this molecule on brain receptors. So the more adenosine, the more effective caffeine is. And so as adenosine rises in the morning, the caffeine will bind and block these receptors and be more effective. Otherwise, you'll need multiple doses of caffeine and you'll have a crash in the afternoon. So if you want to optimize your morning, what I'm trying not to do is expand that 10 minutes. I'm trying to optimize that 10 minutes. So if you could go back and optimize one thing about your health 10 years ago, what would it be? Oh my gosh, I would. I've always been exercising. I would have switched to a whole food diet a lot earlier in my life. And by whole foods, I mean real foods in their whole format. Just like all of you, I eat popcorn, I eat Doritos, I eat processed cheeses. I would just look at the caloric, the fat, and the protein content. I actually wouldn't look at the nutrient content, meaning I actually wouldn't look at the poisons that were in these types of foods. What's interesting about this whole MAHA movement is if we get back to putting the minerals in our soil, the nutrient density in our food, and getting the poisons out of our body, which we can do very, very quickly, you're talking about shifting the entire trajectory of our nation, from the sickest, fattest, most disease-ridden nation in the world to the healthiest, fittest, wealthiest nation in the world. And I believe it starts with the soil. And while we can't control our soil, we can control our minerals. So I would probably, if I could go back 10 years, I would have switched to a whole food diet a lot earlier. All right, let's talk about something powerful but simple. I put a sunlight tracker in your challenge PDF. One of the other reasons why I really want to pour myself into this VIP community is I realize that if I can't affect your habits and change your habits and get you into the habit of being the ultimate human version of yourself, then all I've done is educate you, maybe educate you and inspire you, but I haven't transformed you. And in order to transform you, I need to spend the time to interrupt the habits that you have now and teach and guide you and be with you while you develop the habits that will turn you into the ultimate human version of yourself. That's why you're going to see a lot more of me, and we're going to do case studies with people from this group, and we are going to walk you from where you are now through the habits that align with your goals so that every single one of you can feel amazing every day. So I did this sunlight tracker, and I really want you guys to be intentional about tracking your sunlight for the next, 7 days. Okay, for the next 7 days. We know that getting first light in the morning is one of the most effective ways to regulate your circadian rhythm, boost our mood, and improve your sleep. But the key is consistency, right? The more often we do these things, the more our body gets tied in to knowing this is what we do in the morning, right? Do you remember the experiment with Pavlov's dog where they would, every time they fed the dogs, they would ring the bell? So they would ring the bell and they'd set the food out. Ring the bell, set the food out. Ring the bell, set the food out. Then they actually started just ringing the bell without setting food out. And animals began to salivate. So why did that happen? Because they had a psychosomatic response. It's the same way that arousal works, right? When you get aroused, and you can actually have a psychosomatic response in the body. So our body gets very tied into these clues over Is it morning? Is it night? Should I be sleeping? Should I be waking? What am I going to, what are we getting ready to engage in? And one of the ways to teach ourselves to be reliable so that our cellular biology and our circadian rhythm can rely on us is to be consistent about what we do in the mornings. So commit to tracking your sunlight exposure this week. Keep it simple, stay consistent, and I promise you, you will feel the difference. I know it sounds so hokey to just think that getting sunlight into your eyes and onto your skin in the morning could change the trajectory of your life, but it can. Guys, we only have 5 minutes until Stephen A. Smith joins us. I mean, first of all, what a blessing to have a guy like that, from ESPN, who's sitting on about to get $100 million contract from ESPN, get on and talk about how his morning routine has changed his life. He's one of the funniest, just impactful human beings that I've ever met. He's become a very, very close friend of mine. He only lives 10 minutes south of me here. For those of you guys that are sports fans, some people love him, some people hate him. I happen to love him. But before we get him on in 5 minutes, so get ready, dude. I want you guys to give him a really warm welcome. Send some nice comments into the chat because he can't hear you clapping or cheering. But I bring these people on for free because I know they inspire you by the changes they've made in their life. And he has a morning routine that I've designed for him that's amazing, and he will tell you himself how it's changed his life. So I want to run through these 4 quick questions really fast. What do you think about toothpaste tablets? Toothpaste tablets are great. They're great to travel with. They don't get gummed up. Make sure they're hydroxyapatite tablets. I haven't seen tablets that are not, but make sure they're hydroxyapatite tablets. You chew on these and brush afterwards. So you put the tablet in your mouth, you chew the tablet, it foams up a little bit, you can brush and then spit it out. How do we start habit stacking? That is one of my favorite things. I call it biostacking. But the way that you start habit stacking is you don't do too much too quickly, right? Because, it's the old adage of how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So we don't want to stack too much too quickly because this is what causes people to collapse. We can't make, too much of a commitment out of the gate, or habits will fall apart. To develop habits, it takes 31 days, according to the research, for a habit to become permanent in your life, for it to just become part of who you are, not what you do, right? And your habits are really a collection of who you are. So you start habit stacking by doing things like what we're doing today. Build a consistent morning routine. A morning routine that doesn't have you running all over the place, wondering what I'm going to do next. Like you wake up, you do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And if you're in a hotel room, you can do it. When you're traveling, you can do it. If you're in your in-laws' house, you can do it. You can do it in your house. You can do it wherever you are. I love the fact that the majority of what I'm going to teach you guys are routines that are portable. What if you wake up and it's still dark out? So I addressed that. You can use a 10,000 lumen light. If like I said, if you ever watch Brian Johnson, he has this light in his bathroom. These are not really expensive red lights. These are specific 10,000 lux lights. They're about the size of a laptop. They have a stand. So if you're on shift work or you wake up before the sun and you can't get sunlight, these will mimic the majority of the beneficial rays that you will get from sunlight, and it will start that cortisol, melatonin, adenosine correlation in your brain that we talked about on the challenge. So you can actually get one of those lights. Does red light work in lieu of actual sunlight? Yes, red light is very beneficial, and high quality red light therapy can replace the beneficial wavelengths you get from the sun. Here's how light works. Basically, there's an entire spectrum of light, right? So you start at the lower end of the spectrum with X-rays, which are very damaging. Then you get to something called UVA and UVB. These are the rays that cause skin cancer. And then you get to a very narrow spectrum of light. It's a really tiny sliver of light, which is the visible light spectrum. This is red, orange, yellow, blue, green, indigo, and violet. These are the wavelengths that you can see. The most beneficial of these wavelengths you can see are the red lights and the blue lights, not the blue light coming from your screen, blue light coming from natural sunlight. The reason why is these actually have a very superficial positive effect on your skin, collagen, elastin, fibrin. The certain wavelengths will actually help you to produce vitamin D3, cholecalciferol, which we actually make from sunlight, and cholesterol. Yes, you need cholesterol and sunlight to make vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 deficiency is One of the most rampant deficiencies in the world. It's second only to magnesium. About 50% of the world's population is clinically deficient. 85% of the Latino population and dark complected populations are clinically deficient in vitamin D3. It is the foundation of your immune system. For women, it is linked to increased rates of breast cancer, having low levels of vitamin D3. So if you're getting your blood work done, you want your vitamin D3 in the 60 to 80 nanogram range. That's optimal. Higher is even better. But vitamin D3 deficiency, cholecalciferol deficiency was the second leading cause of morbidity in COVID. Think about that. A simple nutrient deficiency, the second leading cause of morbidity in COVID. How long do you oil pull? And is it dangerous if you have silver fillings? No, oil pulling is not dangerous if you have silver fillings. Oil doesn't actually create a chemical reaction with the silver, so it doesn't cause it to outgas. It also doesn't cause it to be more conductive. So if you have silver fillings or you don't, doesn't matter. You should still oil pull. You'll see a lot of people tell you to oil pull for 15 or 20 minutes. If you have that amount of time, great. If you only have a minute or two, it's better to be consistent about doing it every single day. Just put it in your mouth, swish it. You can go on about doing different things. You can get in your cold plunge. You can actually take a cold shower with it. You can get in your tub with those ice blocks I talked about, and keep the oil in your mouth the entire time. Remember, spit it into a trash can, not down your sink, because it does coalesce. It can clog your drain. What nanometer wavelengths should red light therapy have? You want to make sure. Here's the interesting thing about red light: the more visible red light does not mean the better the bed, because remember, after that visible spectrum of light, you have near infrared and infrared. As you work your way from the near infrared to the infrared spectrum, you're increasing the amplitude, the frequency of the light. And as it increases, it will actually excite something in your body called a water chromophore. And it will cause these chromophores to vibrate and create friction, which creates heat. The reason why you don't sweat in a light bed is because the infrared wavelength is lower. The reason why you do sweat in an infrared sauna is because the wavelength is higher. So it's actually causing friction in your cellular biology, which is good for you, and it's causing you to heat up. So two more questions while we're waiting for Stephen to join us. For folks with Renowns, how can they cold plunge? What Lux Lightbox do you recommend? I don't have a Lux Lightbox brand that I particularly recommend. I'll have my team do some research on it. I get natural sunlight and I lay in a red light therapy bed. I'm happy to give you the manufacturers for those. Again, I don't expect any of you to spend 100 grand on a red light therapy bed, so I'm usually reluctant to even talk about it. But if you're getting ready to buy a Range Rover or a Ferrari, forget that and buy a red light bed. that Ferrari will do nothing for your cellular biology. A red light bed will change your life. So for folks with Renowns, which is a circulatory issue, how can they cold plunge? There's three ways that you can do this. Number one, you can switch to a cold shower. Number two, you can always leave your hands out. If you actually have a cold plunge and your feet and your hands lose circulation, they actually make really good booties for these that you can put over your hands and your feet. They're rubber that will keep the hands and your feet. I also have a technique of just taking your arms, leaving your fingers very, very loose and flicking your hands, allowing your, it's hard to do it on this, this thing, but just fully extending your arm and don't try to stop it. Just flick your hand down like this after you get out of the cold plunge and allow your hand to pass by your hip, bring it back up, flick it down and allow it to pass by your hip. Leave your fingers really, really loose. And what this will do is it will use the centrifugal force to actually push the blood back into your hands, or you can run your hands under warm water when you get out of a cold plunge. But they do make, excuse me, they do make booties for your feet. My daughter wears them. She said her ankles just ache when she gets in a cold plunge. So she'll wear these booties and little rubber hand mittens. That should do the trick. And you can also leave your hands out of a cold plunge when you do those. So we're still waiting on Stephen A. Smith. So I want to just get back to a couple of questions that I get asked all the time. So again, cold plunging, you might want to just write this down. Colder is not better. Longer is not better. I keep my cold plunges between 48 and 52 degrees Fahrenheit, which is fine. If you're new to cold plunging, as long as it's at 58 degrees Fahrenheit, or less, that is the definition of a cold plunge. Because what is the definition of a cold plunge? It is exposure to water temperatures that elicit all four of the cold shock responses: cold shock proteins, peripheral vasoconstriction, brown fat activation, and dopamine spike. So if you can get those four, you're getting the benefits of cold plunging, which start at 58 degrees. It has become such a man contest online to drop your cold plunge as cold as you can get. It's like, well, I cold plunge in 37 degrees. Well, I cold plunge in solid ice. Pretty soon somebody will be getting in liquid nitrogen. And so there's no truth to colder is better or longer is better. All right, it's time to bring our guest who truly understands the power of discipline, routine, and performance. You know him as one of the most passionate and relentless voices in sports media. He's my dear friend, Stephen A. Smith. Brother, what is up, man?
He's good now.
Oh, you got to mute. You're muted.
No, he's muted.
You're muted. I can hear you. Hold on.
They say I'm muted, guys.
You're good to go.
You got me now?
I got you now, brother. It's so good to see you, man.
How you doing, man? It's good to see you. How's everything?
Amazing, man. You look great. It's great to see you. My audience loves you, man. Thank you for coming on and sharing your day with us.
My pleasure. It's been great, man. I'm just taking care of myself and, doing what you got me, what you jump started. The change in my life is taking place. I owe you so much, man. I'm so grateful to you and what you were able to do for me, man. I'll never be able to thank you enough. It's been a life-changing a situation for me, all for the better. And I mean, literally, the only thing I have to complain about now is a stuffy nose. That's about it. That's about it.
Yeah, when you're on the air, a stuffy nose not serving you. Well, I've been to your morning routine. I helped design your morning routine. One of the funniest things I've ever had on a podcast is you and Steve Harvey going back and forth about the cold plunge. I remember when I first started trying to get you to cold plunge that he called you and gave you some flack. Well, we got a lot of newbies to cold plunging on here.
Right. Can I tell your audience about that Steve Harvey story? Because you're not putting it in its raw, authentic context. So I'm going to do it for you, okay? So the audience out there, listen up, man. Steve Harvey's my brother. We're frat brothers, Omega Psi Phi fraternity. We've known each other for a quarter of a century. I love my brother. And Gary had helped me recover from so many things, and it's well documented in my interview with him in terms of all that I was going through, my blood swimming in sugar, skinny, no definition, pot belly, body fat at nearly 30%, 0.1 point away from being a full-blown diabetic. And Gary single-handedly helped me recover from all of that and be in the best shape that I think I've been in the last 30 years, to be quite honest with you. And the one thing that Gary didn't tell me about, however, is that he had hid the cold plunge issue from me all of that time. He never mentioned the cold plunge. Never, ever. Now, I am West Indian man, And so because of that, my family's from the islands, from St. Thomas, Antigua, St. Croix, all of this. And we do not like the cold at all. Nothing cold do we like, okay? And Gary started talking to me about a cold plunge. And I said, oh, hell no. I'm not getting it.
Hell no.
No. Right? So then he told me about Steve Harvey. He told me about the advantages, the shock to your system. It wakes you up in the morning. And not to mention all the other health issues that come, all the health benefits that come along with it. So I picked up the phone. I called Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey says, man, get your ass in that cold plunge. Stop being a punk. Get in there. Get in there. and I hesitated. And then Gary's on the phone with me. Steve Harvey is waiting for me to call him back on a Sunday night. And I jump into the cold plunge. And Gary said, minimum 3 minutes, maximum 6 minutes. You got to go 58 degrees or below with the water. And so I did it. And I stayed in my very first time. I stayed in 5.5 minutes. I was very proud of myself. Gary was like, yes. And I picked up the phone and called Steve Harvey. And Steve Harvey said, quote, man, he said, that ain't bleep. Use the S word. He said, that ain't bleep. That ain't nothing. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you had your arms out of the tub. That's heat.
I remember this.
Nope. He said, that's cheating. And Steve Harvey's exact words, get your ass right back in there. And I had to go back in there and stay for the whole 6 minutes. And I stayed. And ever since then, I've been addicted to it. That's the story.
Yep. Yes, I remember that, man, very, very much. And so, one of the first things that that I did when working with Steven was develop his morning routine. When you take your supplements, I'm happy to say he's got a beautiful backyard at his place. I've been down to this place; it's gorgeous, all landscaped in, landscape lighting. But he's such a convert now, because sometimes I'll call him and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm out grounding, man. I'm walking around my backyard. I got my bare feet. I'm touching the surface of the earth. I'm out getting some sunlight." Just talk just a little bit about your morning routine. You and I both had this conversation about sometimes we hate being on the road because we get out of our morning routine a little bit. We kind of like to be homebodies and get into that routine every day: the cold plunging, the grounding, the sunlight. What does your morning routine look like in the morning when you're home?
First order of business is I wake up, and one of the things that you first cured me of, if you remember, I would wake up with headaches, migraines. I mean, from the time I was about 19 years of age up until 2 years ago, I was 55 when I met you. And, I talked to you about these headaches, and you said most people think that they're getting headaches because they're dehydrated. What they're not realizing is that it's not the absence of water, it's the absence of sodium. And you pointed that out to me. And so you talked to me about that and, taking the Gold Baja salt and all of that, putting it in my water. And ever since then, I can count on one hand how many headaches I've had in 2 years. And so
that is amazing, guys. Take note.
Yeah. So that's one thing. Waking up in the morning, making sure I liquidate myself and drinking that's one thing. I go outside barefoot. I walk in that sunshine. I take my deep breaths like you taught me to do, just soaking it all in and getting that nature's air in and really, really flexing your lungs to some degree. Obviously, so I do that. I take my amino acids every morning. I never miss it. Got to get that protein in there. Got to get my aminos in there. And I hop in a cold plunge, man, because I used to need. Now I love tea because it's good for my throat, and I love the way it tastes. I love English breakfast or black tea with some milk and honey. That's what I like, right? No matter what. But the thing is that the difference now is that I do it for taste, and I do it for my throat. I needed it back then to wake me up, like people need coffee. That is until I started the cold plunge. And when I started the cold plunge, that was a game changer, because what happens is you get in there, and I never stay in for less than 6 minutes, ever.
No, you don't.
I never stay in for less than 6 minutes. And I go in there. I'm now down to about 50 degrees water. I got from 58 to 50. Okay. I'm not trying to go lower. I don't think it's necessary.
No.
But for those of you
no, it's not. You're lucky I told you that it's not.
Exactly. But I get in there, and it's just, for me, what I do for a living, you got to be sharp. You're debating. There's people coming after you. There's information you have to retain. You got to make snap judgments according to what they say and how quick you are with your reflexes, your mental acuity, and how that's working out for you. And I just found that being in that cold plunge and getting up, my day, I'm ready. I'm ready. Yeah. And then the advantage that I also learned is that at nighttime, when you do the cold plunge and then you do like a sauna, that drastic shift assists in better sleep too. So
yes,
I mean, again, we're talking for the purposes of the morning. That's what it does for me. I take my vitamins and supplements, of course. I definitely drink, my Gold Baja salt and all of that with my water. I definitely get that in. The turmeric definitely helps as well. Under the tongue, that's very, very helpful to me as well. But that cold plunge is it. It is nightmarish, especially that first minute. That first minute to that minute and a half. I don't care what you prepared for in life. It just doesn't get old. It hits you, and it is a struggle. But once you get past the first 60 to 90 seconds It's a beautiful thing, man. It really is.
Mhm. Yeah, it really is. And once we locked in Steven's routine, he's one of those guys that he's all in or all out. And he was all out when we met, and then he went all in. And what was really that I appreciated about Steven was he's like a citizen scientist. I mean, he wanted the data. Why am I taking this? What is it going to do to my body? What can I expect? What are the side effects? How long am I going to take it? What is it made from? I mean, he really got into it. I mean, we've been on this journey for a few years now. But he also, in the beginning, which I thought was really helpful to him sticking to his routine, was he was going to a clinic and getting regular body fat composition, muscle composition testing. He would call me all the time. He's like, 88.6, this is down to 62.9. And he gamified it for himself. And I think that this was a big portion of Steven's success, because it's one thing to know that you're doing something. It's another thing to know that it's actually working, right? And there's nothing more exciting than watching your muscle mass go up and your body fat composition come down. And those were the numbers that we started watching. And I remember I'd have to talk him off the ledge sometimes. Right? Because you always wanted to go up in this linear fashion or down in this linear fashion. I'm like, Steve, it plateaus, it goes up a little bit, but your numbers are trending the right way in body fat and trending the right way in muscle mass. And what was really interesting was during this time, his goal, like everybody else on here, when people say they want to lose weight, what they really mean is I want to lose fat, right? And so we had Steven gaining muscle mass and losing body fat. And that transformation was unbelievable. We did not go by the scale. We went by the mirror. Am I right?
Well, I'm glad you said that. It's very, very important that your audience understands that. Put it in its proper perspective. Visceral fat, you're talking about fat around your belly area, okay? When I met you, I was over 100. Remember that?
Yeah.
The number was over 100. It's down to 52.
Yes.
It's down to 52. Okay?
Yeah.
My body fat was at 29.8%. I'm down to 12.7%. And oh, by the way, I backslid because I've been eating like a hog because I've been in the gym 6 days a week, gaining more muscle. But I had gone from my body fat, it had gone down to as low as 10.6, jumped up to 13.5 because I was gaining weight, and now it's down to 12.7 and lowering because I'm on it. And you know, when you talk about, I was looking at the scale, and you and my trainer kept telling me, pay no attention to the scale. Look at the mirror. Let the mirror be your judge. And all of a sudden you start looking, because you look at yourself every day. And when you see a difference, it's a very, very big deal, because you as human beings are usually the last ones to see the change. That's the thing. It's something that I think is important. You look at yourself every day, and you're going to be ultra critical of yourself. And when others look at you and they see that you've lost some fat, let's say hypothetically, if you had lost like 5% body fat, to you, it would be 1, looking at yourself. To somebody else, they'll see the 5. And it's incredibly important to know that, because as you, as an individual, working on your health and what have you, you're going to be ultra critical of yourself. But here's what I would say to all of the folks on this call right now. And you are somebody that you've always been about this. And that's why you and I have gotten so along so well, because you've always been straight with me and honest about what I needed to know. People have to be honest with themselves about what their habits are. I remember when I would call Gary and I would say to Gary, this is not happening, that's not happening. But in the same breath, I'd say, well, I didn't work out the last 3 days. I ate some fried foods. I cheated. I ate some sweets. You know, I didn't take myself.
I remember that.
Supposed to. You got to be, and why? Because that's how you get held accountable. Because you're looking at people and you're letting them know, you know, listen, you're not being true to your routine. And the thing with you is that because I communicate with you so much, I know that if I slip, you'll be one of the first to notice.
Oh, I will.
I know that Dana White, my buddy, will be one of the first to notice. I know that Steve Harvey will be like, what the hell's going on? And I like, nah, I'm not.
It's so true.
So we find different nuggets as human beings. We find different nuggets of incentive to motivate us. And I think it's important that everybody knows you all have to find that for yourself as well. You can't just leave it up to other people. You have to find what motivates you. It could be your girl, it could be your wife, it could be your brother or sister, it could be your parent. Somebody that's going to look at you that you know is going to notice when you slipping. They stay on you, you stay on yourself. That's how you elevate.
That's true, man. My audience had a big question. They said, looking back, what's the one thing you wish you optimized in your health 10 years ago?
Wow.
I know I got that same one this morning. It threw me a little bit.
Honestly speaking, other than taking my vitamins and supplements and being in the gym religiously, I would have to say, Gary, it was meeting you. Honestly speaking, because here's what people need to understand.
Thank you.
I went to doctors. I went all types of places, and you go to these people and they're going, this is what they're saying to you. Well, look, man, you're in your 50s. You know, Father Time is undefeated. You know what I mean? Look at me, man. You know, that's just the way it goes.
Father Time's undefeated.
You're not going to be this way forever.
Father Time's undefeated.
If I'm proud of myself for one thing on this earth, it's that I didn't accept that. I didn't accept that because I was 50, I couldn't have a flat stomach. Because I was over 50, I couldn't have some stamina. Because I was over 50, I was perpetually destined to be out of shape, fat, slovenly, weak, deteriorating before our very eyes. No, my muscle mass has gone from 82 when I met you to over 90 now. And I'm 35 pounds lighter.
Yeah.
I've lost 20 pounds in fat. I've lost
that is incredible
pounds overall, and I've gained nearly 10 pounds of muscle. That is for me being in the gym 5 to 6 days a week. And by the way, I don't mean going hard for 2 hours every day. Ladies and gentlemen, you can lift on your upper body one day, your lower body the next. You could be on the Peloton 1 minute, the Peloton one day, the treadmill the next. It's this constant activity. You never allow atrophy to kick in. You always make sure you're doing something. You can take a rest day here and there, once a week or whatever, but at least 6 days a week, you should be on the move. Your blood should be flowing. You should be doing something. While you're supplementing it with vitamins and supplements, you're eating better. Let's not forget that. Cutting out the sweets. In my case, the white bread, the pasta, and all of this other stuff. Doing those kind of things is incredibly, incredibly important. But consistency is the order of the day. And I will say this. That's why I say meeting you was it. Because what you did for me was you addressed the stomach. When I saw the stomach going down, I said, uh-oh, we're on to something. And for the first time in 20 years, there was something that was positively affecting my physique. And when I saw the opportunity, even in my 50s, to change how I looked, it was a game changer for me. You look at me, you saw me 2 years ago. Just go back and look at the footage, y'all. You'll see my face is fat. You'll see that my suits are fatter and stuff like that. You'll see it. My body was inflamed. It was inflamed. And it made me more knowledgeable about the things I need to do and the things I needed to avoid.
That's amazing, man. I mean, that's such an empowering story. And you know, this challenge that I have with this group, this is my VIP group, but the challenge that we had today, tens of thousands of people on there. We were just focused on a morning routine, how morning routine can change the trajectory of your life, and just how intentional you are from the time you get up until the time you leave the house, and how you can pack so much more into that time than you think you can. So the final question was, if someone only has 10 minutes, in your opinion, what should they prioritize? What's your non-negotiable?
The non-negotiable is to liquidate yourself. First things first.
Yep. Hydrate. Yep.
Take those deep breaths to just remind yourself that you're alive. And if at all possible, get in that cold plunge. Get in that cold plunge.
I knew you were
Let me tell you something.
that.
Let me tell you something. You get in that cold plunge, it's going to be a game changer because you're going to get up. It is impossible. I'm using the word impossible. It is impossible for you to get in the cold plunge and get out of there sleepy. It is impossible. That's going to wake you up. Because remember, what did Gary explain to us, and it's the absolute truth. You stick your body into that cold plunge, all the blood rushes to your vital organs to protect it because it's in emergency mode, okay? Because wait a minute, we're feeling some stuff we ain't never feel. Our body walks around at 98.6 degree temperature. You in 75 degree temperature, that's a bit cold. In the 50s or the 40s, you do that, your body is in emergency mode. So all of a sudden, you understand, you're alive and you get up out of there and you feel normal because you're feeling that normal air kick in and what have you. After you've gotten out that cold plunge, you are wide awake and you are ready to tackle the world. So if you're telling me 10 minutes, take those deep breaths, drink that glass of water with the Baja salt, right? And get yourself in the cold plunge for 6 minutes, not 3. I know the minimum is 3, but damn it, we don't do minimum when we're trying to win. You know, we don't do minimum. I don't care what you're doing. You don't do minimum when you're trying to win. When you're trying to win, you push it. You push it a little bit. All right? And if it says 3 to 6 minutes, then try to do 6 minutes. All right?
I love that, man.
Once you do that, go from there.
What's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning? What time do you wake up, and what's the first thing you do?
First thing I do is thank the good Lord he gave me another day. First thing I do. Secondly, like I said, I just get up, I say a prayer, I meditate for a minute or two, just a minute or two, just to get myself ready. And then I do the routine that I told you about.
Yeah.
With the water, the Baja salt, the deep breaths, walking outside when I'm in warm weather spot, and that cold plunge. All right.
What time is that? What time do you wake up in the morning?
I wake up at 7 o'clock at the latest every morning. Most times 6:30 at the latest. Sometimes when I got a little extra half hour, because I'm the type of person, if I could steal a 60 seconds of extra sleep, I'm gonna take it. Because the sleep, I'm gonna steal it. But once I'm up, and I don't really take. I can count on 2 hands how many naps I've taken in my entire life. Because once I'm up, I'm up, and I'm rolling, and I got stuff to do. I got things to accomplish. I got a world to shake up. That's how I look at it. And so I'm ready to tackle whatever comes my way.
Yeah. Stephen A., anything else you want to share with my community?
Well, I just listen. I just want your community to understand that, you know, this is it's more than a mission. It's more than a hobby. It's a lifestyle change that you're embarking upon. And no matter how tough the road appears at the beginning, the routine makes it easier. And the routine also serves as a source of inspiration, because when you see progress, you're going to be addicted to acquiring more progress. And as a result, you're going to want to do more, even if it's more of the same. You're going to want to do that. And so you have to remember that anything worth having is not going to come easy. If you want to put yourself in a peak condition of health, you have to embrace this challenge just like you would embrace anything else, what with the understanding, if you conquer whatever your demons are with these challenges, it will be the greatest thing that ever happened to you in your life, because there is a difference between being alive and living. There's a whole bunch of people out here walking around alive. They got blood sifting through their brains. They're taking deep breaths. They're working, but they're just methodically logging through the courses of everyday life because they're not living their best life. They're in the hospital, in and out of the hospital. They're not feeling well. They're at home. They're sluggish. They're tired and all of this other stuff, because you know you're not in the best condition and you're looking for pills and doctors and stuff like that to bail you out. This is different. These kind of things. I have a cold plunge. I have a sauna. Hell, I've got a hyperbaric chamber. Okay. And I'm no professional athlete, whatever the hell it takes. I'm on that kind of mission because I'm 57 going on 37 with the life changes that I've made with myself. And I'm not going to stop. My goal is to be the best at whatever it is I choose to do. I have no chance in pulling that off if I don't maximize my potential. And how can I maximize my potential if I'm not willing to put in the work to reach my potential. And by the way,
Nice.
you don't know what your potential is. You don't have any clue because you haven't scratched the surface of your greatness as of yet. You have to know that when it's about taking care of your body, you and the people you love and the people you care for and the people you're assigned to produce for all benefit from an elevated level of greatness that you are able to put forth. You always got to remember that. That should be more than enough inspiration for you to live your best life.
Man, that's so good, man. Stephen, thank you so much for taking your time out your insanely busy schedule. We all appreciate you so much. Can't wait to show you the new toys that I just had installed this week. The 2 new hyperbarics. I got the podcast chamber and then the gym. So hopefully I'll see you this week when you're back in town. But thank you for taking the time with my community. You can't hear them clapping right now, but they're clapping right now and cheering for you, brother. So thank you so much. All right.
All right, y'all. Take care. God bless everybody.
See you soon. God bless you too, brother. How awesome is that? Yeah, it's just so motivating. He's such a great guy. So it's live Q&A time. I'm going to get to as many of the hands that are raised as I can possibly get to. But if that wasn't inspiring for you guys, I don't know what would be. I mean, he's just such an inspiring figure. I'm going to keep this going for the next 2 days too. So hey, Jeff.
How you doing, Gary?
I'm doing amazing, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for doing this challenge. I think it's going to help a lot of people. And, I'm telling all my family members and loved ones around me about a lot of these things. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I didn't have time to eat, so I just had one of these.
I love that too. Pressed whole foods. You hear me talk about whole food all the time. That is just pressed whole food.
Absolutely. Another delicious. And I'm so glad to have another option. So it's great.
Yeah.
Couple quick questions just to build upon what you've been talking about today. So the first is sunlight. So I live up in the Northeast, and right now it's obviously pretty cold, and we have snow on the ground and all that. So solutions aside from buying the light, did you say you could be by a window? Are you able to, or do you have to be outside?
Yes.
Okay.
By a window is good. So the light is good. By a window is better. By a window that's open is best, because what happens when the light hits any piece of glass, acrylic, or what have you, there's some refraction. So you actually lose some of the wavelengths of light. In fact, I found this when I started light meter testing beds. Most of the manufacturers actually test, and they give you the stats based on the bulbs, and they test the raw bulbs. But then they put a layer of acrylic over it, and you lay on top of that acrylic. Well, they should test it on the other side of that acrylic before it goes into your body. And what I found was a lot of these, the light would scatter, and the testing above the acrylic wasn't even therapeutic. Very similar with sunlight. So a light box is good. Near a window or a door with a big glass pane is better. Best is direct exposure. So if you actually open the door, open the window, I know it's cold outside, but open the window, just look out into that sunlight. And it doesn't take long, right? Just a few minutes, because natural wavelengths of light have an immediate reaction on your cortisol receptors. What is this chiasmatic nucleus, I think it's called. I'll double check on that. But it immediately, those photoreceptors are immediately stimulated. So, and it just, doesn't have to be bright, doesn't have to be direct sunlight. You don't have to be Miami like I am. You don't have to have, direct view of the sun. Even on cloudy days, that light actually penetrates the sun. Remember, it's largely the invisible light that's helping you. It's the infrared, near infrared lights that are helping you. So that would be my suggestion there.
Appreciate it. And then just on the oil pulling, I actually had purchased some of the coconut oil, and I've used it a little bit, but I was having trouble being consistent about it because it says 10 to 15 minutes. Now you're saying that you do get some benefit by just doing it a minute or two if you're consistent with it.
No question, just doing it in a minute or two. I mean, a lot of the studies were on shorter duration, consistent over a longer period of time. So 15, 20 minutes is tough. I mean, to hold anything in your mouth, even chewing gum for 15 minutes is tough. And some people just get bored and bothered with it. But if you can actually go for 2 or 3 minutes, that's perfect consistently every single day. I mean, the oil is so good for your gums, and so good for actually binding and pulling toxins out of your mouth, that 2 to 3 minutes a day is great. 4 or 5 minutes is better. 10 minutes is, 10 to 15 minutes is best. What I was trying to say this morning was, we're already going to brush our teeth. Let's use a hydroxyapatite and a soft brush. You may not be tongue brushing, but a tongue brush will add 30 seconds, to your morning routine. And then the oil pulling, it doesn't have to add a lot of time, because you put the oil in and you can start swishing it around. You can go do other things. You just can't talk to your spouse, which might be a good thing. But and then just spit it into the trash can. I know a lot of people that do it and get in the cold plunge and spit it out when they get out of the cold plunge. That's fine too. But the important thing is to be really consistent about it. Small increments over a longer period of time are usually better than bolus increments once in a while.
Got it.
All right.
Thanks
Awesome,
so much.
man.
I appreciate it.
You're very welcome, Jeff. We'll talk soon.
Yep. Sounds good, Gary.
Hi there.
Oh, hi.
Is it Magdalena?
Yes, it's Magdalena.
Yeah. Hey,
First of all,
Magdalena.
thank you so
Make
much.
America healthy. I love that.
We actually we ran into each other on the MEHA inauguration ball.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
In DC. Yeah.
that's right. So I have a couple of questions. First of all, sunlight. I wear contacts. Do you recommend to take them out while exposing to the sunlight?
No, all contacts, or most contacts, are doing is one of 3 things: correcting the shape of the eye, or correcting the lens of the eye. So they unless you have specific ones that they do make them now that are polarized. So as long as they're not polarized, then they won't affect or refract the light in a way that's not beneficial.
So the other question is, what do you think about those grounding mats? Because we have snow today as well. I try to ground, like, no way that I'm gonna walk
Yeah.
on this outside.
I actually have a grounding mattress. So I'll send you the grounding mattress that I use, and I use a PEMF mat, pulse electromagnetic field. So I think the PEMF mats and grounding mattresses are better than the grounding mats. But like I say, grounding mat is good. Better would be a grounded mattress, and best would be grounding mattress with a PEMF. But so I'm a fan of the grounding mats, because it's a great place to start, and actually, you will sleep grounded, and actually helps keep a low Gauss current running through the body.
Okay, and another question is, what do you think about the red light saunas?
I'm a big fan of red light saunas. Then red light saunas are infrared saunas. And I was explaining earlier, the wavelength of light is high in the infrared spectrum, usually over 1100 nanometers. And when that happens, you actually sweat, because it excites a water chromophore. So you actually begin to sweat, which is a good thing. So anything that makes you sweat, remember, sweating is our natural detoxification pathway. You might know the story with my parents where, both of my parents are deconditioned. My mom has bilateral knee replacements. My father had a near fatal boating accident many years ago, and he has hemiparalysis on one side of his body, so he walks with a cane. Neither one of them can do the types of exercise that get their heart rates up into what they call the exercise benefit zone, not even steady state cardio, or certainly not zone 2 cardio. Getting in a sauna will safely raise your heart rate and put it into that zone. Now, I have my parents breathe a little bit of oxygen, which is called exercise with oxygen therapy, or multi-step oxygen therapy. I do that for cognitive function. I actually did it this morning with my son. I just ran a little oxygen and a nasal cannulas, because I wanted to be extra on my game for this live event. But I'm a huge fan of sauna, infrared or dry sauna. All right.
Okay, and last question to the
Yeah.
30-30-30 challenge in the morning. I used to do my strength workout in the morning. Can I replace the cardio with the strength workout? I mean, I
No
do.
doubt. If
I
you
do
only
have-
do one type of exercise, you want to do weight training exercise. Weight training beats cardiovascular exercise hands down in any clinical study that you look at. If you combine weight training and cardio, great. But if you only have a limited amount of time and you can either lift weights or do cardio, I would lift weights.
Well, I have a standing desk with a treadmill, but usually, like when I'm on my calls in the afternoon, I do like
Yeah.
walking, talking, but like I already developed the habit of the strength workout in the morning,
that.
so I don't want
Yep.
to switch it. Okay, awesome.
Strength is a hallmark of longevity. All right, guys. So we're going to get to more of the hands that are raised. So please reiterate. I have 21 hands raised. So I'm going to try to get through everybody if I can. So to be fair, I'm only going to try to take one question. Very likely, somebody else is going to ask your question anyway. That's usually the way that it works. Hi, Tina. I think you're muted. Yeah, you are muted. Okay, you're good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. I can hear you.
Hello?
Yep, you're good to go.
We can
You
hear
might
now?
not have your volume up.
Okay, we're all good. It's great to
Yep,
meet
okay,
you.
good.
I have a quick
Great
question
to meet you.
for the hydrogen tabs. I'm in Canada, and so you're not able to ship them. Do you know roughly when you'll be able to? Even with your protein bars too, we can't get them shipped to Canada.
Yeah, very soon. Do you have Sprouts in Canada?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So we're going into Sprouts. We actually just had the call this morning, so all of the Sprout locations are going to handle it, and they.
Oh no! Oh, location. Oh no, not those stores. No, I don't think.
Oh, okay. So then that wouldn't be a place to get it. Yes, we are working on Canada. Canada is really tough on supplements and food service products, but we are working on Canada right now. So I'll keep it in the. I'll keep you guys abreast on when it's available in Canada.
Okay, thank you.
You're super welcome. Hi there. Is it C?
Hi.
Hi.
Yes. Hi. So excited to be able to talk to you. My name is Sai. And so I wanted to ask you because I got hit in my head. I'm a school teacher by one of my students accidentally. And that was last year in March. And even like it wasn't that bad. I had severe symptoms and it was really, really like it immediately destroyed my life for all these months. Today was my first half day going back to work. But I'm still having kind of like the residue of those symptoms.
Yes.
I still like when I walk, I'm still a little bit dizzy. Like I have trouble with like my eyes focusing. They have given me all the tests possible by the workers' comp, everything, and everything comes out like well. So my question is, what are the other things that I can do? Like I already take supplements, vitamins. I tried to do the hot and cold shower, and I got even dizzier after that.
Yes.
So I don't know what you have for me that I recommending me that I could do to speed the healing.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you good, better, best again. So good would be to take a turmeric and curcumin supplement along with CoQ10 or ubiquinol.
Yes.
Those two are amazing. There is another supplement called Endocalyx, which is a vascular repair. Endocalyx, Calyx. So those are where I'd start. The next level would be full body red light therapy. If you can find a clinic near you that has full body red light therapy.
Yeah, I am doing that one. Yeah.
Okay. And then the best would be if you combine that with hyperbaric. So if you can find a qualified clinic next to you that does hyperbaric treatments, this is the fastest way to accelerate neuroinflammatory conditions like traumatic brain injury, concussions, TBIs, even, and I know this isn't what you have, but even like early onset cognitive decline, loss of short-term recall, cognitive decline, like what would occur in Alzheimer's dementia. If you can find a qualified physician near you or clinic near you that has a hyperbaric chamber, you don't need high pressures. And by the way, hyperbaric chambers, guys, if you're not using 100% O2, are not flammable. That very tragic accident that just happened in the Midwest with the young boy that was in a hyperbaric chamber that actually caught fire happened because that hyperbaric chamber had 100% oxygen in it. The boy was also not grounded, which is an absolute no-no when you're in a hyperbaric chamber with 100% oxygen, because static electricity from his blanket, obviously caused a spark, and you got, essentially a bomb. Most of the hyperbarics are using ambient air and compressing it, or using 92 to 95% O2 and you're breathing that under pressure, so there's no flammable risk. I think a lot of people are spooked about hyperbarics now anytime there's a tragedy like that. So I would really consider hyperbaric therapy. I think you'd be shocked how fast it would accelerate your recovery.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all of that information.
You're so welcome. Ray.
Hey Gary, how are you?
Pretty good, man. How are you?
Doing pretty good. So I have a couple of questions. I know that testosterone has been an issue for many people. I have it way too low. And one of the things is being like, I don't have any of the, so I still have a little bit of hair in my face and all that stuff. And in terms of sexual health is all good, but testosterone is super low, and I am sometimes low energy.
Yeah.
I've also been afraid of the TRT, so I'm not sure what you recommend.
Okay, so let's go through these in 4 quick stages. Number 1, don't be afraid of TRT, but don't start it too early. I'm going to address that in a second. You can go to Journal of American Urology. Journal of American Urology. This is considered the Bible for male endocrine therapy. Journal of American Urology, testosterone. If you put that into Google, it'll bring it up. Scroll down to section 13. This is what's called practitioner guidelines. And what this means is these are the guidelines that physicians should follow when they are explaining the benefits or risks of hormone therapy. What you will find is in 2018, they updated all of their clinical guidelines on male hormone therapy with testosterone. They eliminated the risk of, not eliminated the risk, but they addressed that testosterone therapy is not increasing your risk for prostate cancer. It's not increasing your risk for cardiovascular disease. In fact, it's the opposite. It could decrease your risk for cardiovascular disease. The impact on bone mineral density, anemia, mood, all kinds of things. So I would encourage you to read that so you're more confident about hormone therapy. That being said, let's go to what would be root causes, right? Testosterone therapy is far up the trunk into the leaves of the tree. The question is, what's going on in the roots? So if I were you, do you mind me asking you how old you are?
I'm 47.
Okay, so 47. So if I were you, I would find a qualified doctor and I would get a hormone panel done. And I would have the following tests run, not just testosterone, but also free testosterone. Very often men that are low in testosterone are really clinically low in free testosterone. Second thing that I would check is the LH and FSH. These are the signaling hormones that turn up or turn down the dial to the testicles. They either increase or decrease the amount of testosterone that's being produced, and you can mimic that signal. The other 3 musts are something called SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin. Most doctors can test for this. If it's high, you take a mineral called boron to bring it down, and this restores healthy levels of testosterone. There are supplements like Tongkat Ali, which stimulate the testicles to increase their production of testosterone, which are very safe and very good. The other 2 tests I would do are DHEA to make sure your body has the raw material it needs to produce testosterone. And I would get that my estrogen checked. Testosterone, estrogen, free testosterone, DHEA, and SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin. If you can get those tests done, you'll have a roadmap into why your testosterone level was so low. If you look at all of those things and those don't seem to be the culprit, it may be time to have your doctor consider hormone therapy. That's called primary hypogonadism, which is where the testicles are actually having trouble producing testosterone. It's not the signaling hormone or the construction material, the raw material.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I test through function, so I think I have
most of
those. Yeah, so I need to check and compare to what you're saying. And then one quick question. I've always all my life had trouble waking up. I'm not lazy. I'm a hard worker. I just cannot wake up. And if I wake up super groggy and whatever.
The reason why that is happening is probably also linked to your low testosterone. Remember that low testosterone causes low production of red blood cells in your bloodstream. The reason for that is testosterone, one of its primary roles is to put pressure on the bone marrow to produce new red blood cells. So if you're low on red blood cells, you're not anemic, but if you're low on red blood cells, you're transporting lower amounts of oxygen, which you perceive as fatigue. If you raise your testosterone, you would raise your red blood cell and hemoglobin levels. If you raise red blood cell and hemoglobin, which is like the fluid inside of the red blood cell, if you raise those, you're going to bind more oxygen. If you bind more oxygen, you have more energy, which you perceive as better mental clarity.
Okay. Awesome.
Right,
Thank you.
Got it, brother. Man, I hope you guys are getting a benefit out of these. These are some great questions today. Hi, Leah.
Hey, how are you?
Incredible. How are you?
Good. I'm like nervous, shaking, and get to talk with you. I'm amazed again. So I'll keep it short. I have two, but one is I think is a lot of other people ask this. But the first one was I feel like I'm genuinely happy or healthy and happy. And then I got some blood work done, and I don't know, my hemoglobin is low, my MCV is low, MCH is low, and I watched one of your previous podcasts, kind of breaking that down and like what it does and things. But I do want to sign up for Function, and I want to get that done. And I guess dive in deeper, but is there anything that you can recommend for now with those lower levels?
Yes. So if you look at those levels, your RDW is going to be high. So MCV is low, which is mean corpuscular volume. You said MCHC is low. That's mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration. Your hemoglobin is low. Can I switch to this whiteboard for a second? This is a really, I think a lot of people will benefit from this question. So, it's
7890.
okay. Now you guys all know the password to my whiteboard, 7890. You can break into my whiteboard anytime. So what I want to show you is, so I've written this for people before. So remember, we have red blood cells, right? So these are your red blood cells. Pay attention, men, too. And inside of the red blood cell, you have a fluid. That fluid is called hemoglobin. Okay? It's called hemoglobin. It's actually inside this fluid that oxygen is bound, right? So oxygen is bound inside of this hemoglobin. So what happens is, and this goes lost by most physicians, even when they do a hormone panel on you, when they look at your red blood cell range, it goes from here to here, and they look at the hemoglobin range, and it goes from here to here, right? And they say, well, and it's about 380 to 560. This is 13 to about 17. And they'll say, well, your red blood cells are right here. You're in the normal range. Your hemoglobin is right here. You're in the normal range. There's nothing wrong. But watch what happens if I just wipe out one red blood cell, and then I go into the other red blood cells, and I just drain a little bit of the hemoglobin out of them. Still in the normal range, but look what's happened to the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. Do you see that? So what happens is, since oxygen equals energy, these numbers are in the normal range, but your energy is low because your oxygen level is low. You already said hemoglobin is low, red blood cell count is low, which means that your MCV, MCHC are going to be low because that's your mean corpuscular volume. See how the volume's low? It's the mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration. So see how that's low? So now your oxygen is low. So what this is going to start to do, not only are you going to be more fatigued, but you're actually not going to sleep well. You're actually not going to wake up rested from sleep. This is precisely the reason why people that are the most exhausted sleep the worst, right? And you hear me talk about this all the time. I always ask physicians, why is it that people that are the most tired sleep the worst, because you'd think that the people who are the most exhausted would be the best sleepers. That's what they would do well, but they don't, because your blood oxygen is low. So as you go to sleep at night and your respiratory rate begins to decline, what happens to your blood oxygen level? As you breathe in less air, you take in less oxygen. Well, if your blood is already poor at transporting oxygen and your respiratory rate gets really, really shallow, the oxygen level will really drop and you will not suffocate from the standpoint of you'll die. But I mean, you are essentially suffocating. You are hypoxic all night. So if we can raise red blood cell and raise hemoglobin, then we can increase the amount of oxygen. We can also increase the number of red blood cells. And if I raise red blood cells and I raise hemoglobin, I raise oxygen. If I raise oxygen, I raise energy. How do you do that? You fix your hormones. Okay. Primarily testosterone. So I hope that made sense. Is that?
Yeah, people were writing that down.
Oh, they're writing that down?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Good. Yeah, this is one of those things where you're just, not in the optimal range. This is hypoxia hiding in plain sight. This is hypoxia hiding in plain sight, right? And most of our doctors will tell us, oh, this is perfectly normal. And you're like, well, why am I so exhausted? Well, we don't know. Maybe you have stress in your life. Maybe you're not sleeping well. No, you have low blood oxygen, right?
Okay, so then do I just like go see a hormone specialist, would you say? There's not like a supplement or something
Yes.
that would help?
Yeah, I would get your testosterone, your free testosterone, even though you are a woman. Yes, your DHEA, your
Oh, that's
vitamin
interesting.
D3, and your SHBG. Those are the. Boy, that's terrible handwriting, but I should have been a doctor. I would get those 3 levels checked. I would optimize these 3 before I considered hormone therapy.
Okay, and then function, the blood testing can help with that, right?
Oh, no
Kinda
question.
guide.
Function's great at that. Yeah.
Okay, and then I took the genetics testing last year and I came back green on everything. So they recommended doing the 10x optimize. I still do that. Is that good, would you say?
I would
kind of
switch
heard
to
mixed.
Pure Ultra Multi, and based on your weight and being a female, I would do 2 capsules a day. I would not take all 3 capsules a day.
Okay, pure ultra multi.
Pure
Okay.
Pure Encapsulations Ultra Multi. By Pure Encapsulations, sorry.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Oh, I'll sit back in the chair. I love the whiteboard. Now that I got this digital whiteboard, there's going to be a lot of teaching going on, guys. Okay, hi, guys.
Hi, I'm Eva, my husband Jerry.
Hi, Eva. Hi, Jerry.
So thank you so much. Everything that you've mentioned, my husband only believes you if it comes from me. He doesn't.
You know how it is.
So I'm so excited because his mom's a nurse and she knows best, and I'm like, no, this is not what Gary said. But I wanted to address a couple of my things. I promise I will ask one question. So I've had a journey in the last 9 years of different health issues. So it stemmed from having my last one, my last daughter. After I had her 9 years ago, I guess the C-section or birth triggered my autoimmune to, I guess, become active. And since then, I've had a series of, I'm on biologics, which I know are horrible, and I hope to God I can get off of them. But I've had cancer a couple times. I had to have a hysterectomy. I started hormone replacement. And I also get, because I'm on these biologics, which compromise my immune system, I get all of these really weird random infections, which one of the ones I've had, it wasn't an infection, it was Ramsay-Hunt syndrome, which is the shingle that activated in my ear. So I wanted to know, like, what do you recommend that I could do, aside from everything we've kind of gone over already, that I could, I don't know, maybe make my autoimmune dormant or.
Okay, this is a great question. I'm going to go back to the whiteboard because this is going to be a big one for big one for our group. My cameraman has to keep jumping up and jumping down. So first of all, I'm just going to back this up, and this is exactly why I'm going to start pouring myself into this group, because I want to take folks like yourself, and I want to, in real time over several weeks, I want to walk through testing. What are we going to do? Again, I'm going to bring a qualified medical professional on, and team up with them. We're going to walk our way through some of these things. Okay. First of all, the term autoimmune means that the immune system is manufacturing antibodies to some kind of tissue in the body. This usually happens because of a progressive weakening of the immune system, not necessarily a malfunctioning of the immune system. Secondly, the question is, why are we attacking the immune system? These are the four most overlooked things in all of modern medicine, in my opinion. Okay? And it's very likely that of all the people that are watching this right now, 95% of you have never been tested for any of these things. And it's these four. Mold, mycotoxin, parasite, and viral. Okay. The reason why mold, mycotoxins, parasites, and viruses go missed on most of modern medicine is because they don't show up in your labs, right? Your hormones can be relatively normal. Your cholesterol and your triglycerides, your what's called your comprehensive metabolic panel, your CBC, your complete blood count. Your immune system's not necessarily fully flared up. You're not super symptomatic, right? It's not driving you to the emergency room or driving you to the urgent care. But these little underlying pathogens are now, there are sound scientific links to all kinds of conditions: multiple sclerosis, autoimmune Crohn's, autoimmune Hashimoto's, mold metals. Sorry, I want to add that, metals. And so if we don't at least get this variable out of the way, what happens is we become progressively more sick, because here at the center of the hub, all of these things, let's say one of these things is at the center of this hub, and then you start to have hormone issues, right? And then you start to have memory issues. And then you start to have mood issues. And then you start to have autoimmune issues, right? So basically, and you have things like fatigue, you have mood numbness, right? And the next thing you know, you're chasing this myriad of symptoms. I always talk about it like spokes on a wheel, right? And you're trying to fix your hormones with one doctor. You're going to another doctor because you have an autoimmune issue. Now you're on mood stabilizers, or you're just learning to deal with something called mood numbness or flat affect. You're exhausted all the time, and you're having short-term memory issues. And by short-term memory, I don't mean confused, but I mean just brain fog that is at the level where you notice, and probably the people close to you notice. Your spouse begins to notice. I'm not saying like disoriented, so I don't want to mischaracterize that. But what's happening is these low level infections cause all kinds of symptoms that we can generally deal with, right? But they start to pile up over time. So we're going to talk about mold, metals, mycotoxins, parasites, and viruses, and what these things do in the body, and how we can test for them, and how we can, once we find them, how we can get rid of them. As you know, I'm actually going through heavy metal detox right now, and I'm about to use myself as a case study to show you guys that if weeks ago, when I discovered that I actually had lead and mercury poisoning, which I did, what did I do about it? And I told you I got it from this water machine that I never, ever trust anyone to just give me something that I blindly used, but I did. And before I ever talked about it on social media, I started using it. And a few months in, I realized this machine was actually welded with lead, and it had mercury components in it because it was from China. But I almost think it was a blessing that this happened to me, because I know exactly what to do to walk my way out of it. So if I was you, what I would be doing is I would be doing lots of things to support my own natural detox pathways. I would be doing things like sauna. Can I get to a new, I'll just go back. So what are some big, when we talk about detoxing, right? What are our natural detox pathways? Sauna, right? Because that's sweat. Hydration, glutathione, binders like things like activated charcoal, zeolite clays, binders to get these kinds of toxins out of our gut. But the first thing to do is identify what could be causing the conditions that you're having, because it sounds to me that, like, as time goes on, you're adding more spokes to the wheel. So what you're doing is not working, which means that what's causing it has not been addressed. And so if I were you, I would get a full mold, mycotoxin, metal, and parasitic panel. You would not believe the number of people that are affected by parasites. I'll tell you what supplements you can do if you have parasites. There's a great one by Free Range called Parapurge. I've done it multiple times, but these are the kind of things that the kind of case studies that I want to start and take this VIP group on with, because I promise you, if it's not you that's on this Zoom right now, it is someone you know or someone you love. I bet you would not have to touch 5 people in your closest inner circle to find someone who is toxically poisoned by one of those 4 categories that I just put up there. And so we're going to talk about how we can look for the symptoms for those, how we can test for them, and then how we can get rid of them. Okay.
Thank you.
You're super welcome. Okay. Yo, Ephraim?
Yep. How you doing?
Ephraim, how are you?
Good. I've been watching you.
You have? Well, I've been watching you, watching me.
So my main question is I have all these things, fatigue, low energy, I could definitely drop some pounds too. And that's why, sometimes should I do the Mounjaro, not do the shots? Yes, no, that's a whole different story. I definitely need to get into shape and do a lot of other work. My question is, without spending $100,000, how could I, as a regular person, I want to do a full blood test. Who can I go to? I don't know if that's something you offer or if there's other doctors you recommend that I could give a full blood panel of what I have and see what I'm missing in terms of, hormones, vitamins. Like, it's like, in other words, like, you talk about a lot of things, mold and toxins, which are all very nice. Yeah. And I could change my toothpaste, which I'm sure helps. But how do I know what my issue is and what I could do to fix it besides the health aspect?
So there's 3 things you can do. Number one, if you have insurance, generally these basic health panels are covered by your insurance. So if you have a primary care doctor, you can ask them if you want to write this down, or I can put it up on the board. My production manager is like, please, not another trip to the board. It's good. So you want to look at your glycemic profile, which is glucose, hemoglobin A1C. All right, they're saying please put it on the board.
Yeah. Well, okay, I want to say one question. I've done full blood work, but then who could I trust or go to tell me what to do after that?
Well, your primary care should be good. Function Health is good. Function Health panel is only $500. So these are the ones. These are the categories that you want to go after. So this is the first part of your panel: glucose, hemoglobin A1C, insulin. That's your glycemic profile. Full hormone panel. What's called a CBC, a CMP. These are, by the way, they might sound like big terms, but these are basic: comprehensive metabolic panel, complete blood count, hormone panel. These are very standard. What's called a lipid profile, also very standard. I'm not saying anything that your physician would not understand. And then nutrient deficiencies. or just call it nutrients. And here are the big nutrients I would look at: DHEA, SHBG, vitamin D3, and B12. That's where I would start. This is exactly where I would start. And then if you don't want to spend a lot of money, there's 3 things that you can fix. You can make sleep non-negotiable, meaning you can start being intentional about your sleep and your sleep routine. The second thing you can do is you can make 30 minutes of exercise in the morning non-negotiable, even if it's as simple as a 30-minute walk. If you want to put your walk on steroids, just add a weighted vest to that walk. Tomorrow I'm going to be doing the event tomorrow with a weighted vest, adding 10 to 12 pounds to that. It will just consolidate the amount of time that you have to go and the distance you have to go to get the benefit. So I would hone in on my sleep. I would get that basic panel done. I would look at those nutrient deficiencies. None, by the way, this may not cost you anything if you have health insurance, or $500 if you go to Function Health. And I would hydrate and make 30 minutes of exercise completely non-negotiable first thing in the morning. You would be surprised how far you can take yourself with just that lifestyle change alone. Sleep and that minimal amount of exercise, how far that
doesn't
take
work.
you.
I don't sleep well. You've spoken about it, how, if
Yeah.
you're racing or waking up, and I have a lot of things. I'm definitely insulin resistant. I definitely need to lose weight. I don't know. It's like if you would have a system that I could upload my blood work and get a recommendation from someone who knows, not every doctor is going to recommend everything. That would be
Yes.
helpful.
Yeah. I would. Function Health has that. I mean, right now I'm conflicted because I just exited 10X Health and I have a non-compete that I have to contend with. I'm trying to work through that. Or I would have a solution for you myself, because my intention is to get back to be in service to humanity. Right now, I have to refer you to clinics I don't have an affiliation with, like someone like a Function Health, or if you were down here in Miami, I would refer you to Centner Wellness. But Function Health has amazing doctors, and it's $15,000 worth of blood work, and they charge $500. If you were to go get the blood work on your own, it would be $15,000. And they have an AI panel, and then they have a physician review it. So that is for the bang for the buck, probably where, I would send someone right now. And they will do this and tell you exactly what to do. I'm just trying to say, you're not going to be able to supplement your way around poor sleep. You're not going to be able to diet your way around not exercising. So, the foundational basics that I would start to do tomorrow morning that you have control over is, if you can get this panel done by your doctor or by Function Health, great. You can supplement for those nutrient deficiencies as soon as you find them. You can make 30 minutes of exercise non-negotiable, and you can focus on your sleep. So if you have difficulty sleeping, try the magnesium formula at night, try a sleep formula at night. Start to do the 5 things that I always recommend: darken the room, cool the room down. For people like yourself, take a contrast shower, a cold shower, a hot shower, followed by an ice cold shower for 30 seconds to break the catecholamine cycle in your brain. Do the breathwork technique that I talk about in bed. Long, slow inhales through the nose with a pause, out through a straw. Imagine pulling the thoughts from your brain, your head, into your lungs and breathing those thoughts out of your body. Literally imagine yourself doing that. It's called biofeedback. These simple things that you can do that can actually move you into a routine that will, in and of itself, if you did nothing else, improve this condition 12 to 20%. And then take a deep dive into your blood work.
I appreciate it. Because again, it could be many issues. It could be ADD. It could be headache. It could be so many things. I don't even know.
Right. That's right. That's why you have to start with the least amount of effort that's going to affect the most amount of things. Right? You fix your sleep, your life changes. You start exercising, your life changes. And you find the nutrient deficiency, your life changes. So that's always where I start. In almost every case with someone that starts a conversation the way that you're starting it, there is a deficiency that is causing this condition to exist. Okay.
Right. Okay. Again, one last thing. I do wake up tired. Yeah, I could sleep 7 hours. I mean, I have kids, thank God, so that doesn't happen right now. But I could sleep 7 hours and still be tired. I've done a test, a sleep study, and it wasn't too bad. So
sleep study is not going to be bad. What's going to be bad is your hormone levels. I mean, I would bet my entire career you're clinically deficient in testosterone and or free testosterone. That's why that hormone panel is so important.
And a regular doctor would tell me what to supplement, or I'd better go to that clinic.
He should. A regular physician should know how to supplement for hormones. If not, I would get another doctor. But most of them should have the basic training in hormones. They'll at least be able to identify it for you. No question.
Right. All right. We'll start with that.
Right.
Thank you.
Awesome, my friend. Okay, so let's do one or two more questions, and then we have to start wrapping up. And I actually would love it if you guys would just sit around and just have a personal moment with me to help me design this future of this VIP group, because I really have the intention of literally growing this to the largest community on the surface of Mother Earth, and educating this community so we can collectively go out and educate and inspire a lot of other people. So Tyler, what's up, man?
Hey, Gary. Thank you.
How you doing?
Good.
You're welcome.
Great. I've been following you from the beginning, and I feel like I'm just now catching the fire. So I just thank you. So it's taken a while, but the education is coming, and I really appreciate it. Okay, so to be kind of quick, I think you answered some of my stuff, but I've got a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old son and daughter. 16-year-old son. He has auditory neuropathy. She has hearing loss. He has Graves' disease. She has Horner's. They both have poor balance. They both, she could sleep forever and she's still tired. He has tight muscles. She has loose muscles. I think there's a pattern here, and I think it might be your autoimmune. But they also have like I think it's called kyphosis or whatever, where they just have really
hyperkyphosis.
Yeah, where, they're just like this. My question is, where do I start? Do I start with the chiropractor? Do I start with the function? Do I start with these autoimmune, tests? Where do I start with them?
Yeah, so absolutely the place you start with is with the diet. You got to really clean up their diet. So here are the 5 things that I would do right away.
Okay.
Number 1, I would get all of the folic acid out of their diet.
They both have ADHD. Okay. Yep.
Okay. Oh yeah. So no question. This alone is going to help.
Okay.
Folic acid is found in fortified or enriched foods. So you can, what are fortified or enriched? Breads, cereals, grains, pastas, rice. Okay. Those are your biggest offenders. We also add it to cookies and crackers and all kinds of things. Spin all of these boxes around. What's really cool about this exercise, sounds like it's onerous. It's not. You only have to intensively go through it once, right? And once you recognize the brands, like I use things like masa chips. And I replace those for Doritos. I use things like what's the Masa's potato chip? Vandy. Sorry, I had a brain fart there for a second. Vandy chips. These are potato chips your kids can still eat, but they're organic potatoes. Deep fried in beef tallow and with sea salt and spices. And so, number 1, get the folic acid, the fortified or enriched foods out of the diet. That's the first thing to go. The second thing I would do is I would eliminate all seed oils, dairy, gluten, and grains. I know that sounds like a lot. This is a modified elimination diet. Dairy, glutens, grains, seed oils, and folic acid. You would be shocked at the myriad of foods that are going to open up to you, even if you get rid of those things. Because what I want to do is I want to reduce the inflammatory cascade. I want to nutrify the body. I want to make sure that they have the full spectrum of vitamins, minerals, and amino acids. The other thing I would do is I would make sure that they are adequately hydrated first thing in the morning, and I would add the Baja Gold mineral salt. That's the first thing. The second thing I would do, and I'm going in order of not costing you anything. The second thing I would do is I would aggressively try to restore their circadian rhythm. Usually kids like this will have focal stimuli that they get addicted to. Things like, laptops, computers, iPads. So there has to be boundaries on those things. They don't start till a certain point in the morning and they end at a certain point at night, because you have to allow their cellular biology to restore to a healthy circadian rhythm. The third thing I would do is I would get the hypermobile one tested for something called Ehlers-Danlos. It's, well, I don't need to write it up there. Do you want me to write it? It's Elhers Danlos, Danlos, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Because this is treatable. Once you know that, there's a lot you can do. That's definitely where I would start. And I would start exposing them to nature as much as you can. Outside, touching the ground, being in sunlight, sun on their skin, not keeping them indoors all the time, not around all of this unnatural lighting. I would get them outside as much as I can. And then the final thing I would do is I would start the search. Mold, mycotoxin, metals, viruses.
What we just talked about. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and I've started with the diet and trying to eliminate the devices. So this is good. And then could you spell that again? Ehlers-Danlos. How do you spell the first part?
E-L.
You did that?
E-L-H-E-R-S. Ehlers.
Okay.
Danlos. D-A-N-L-O-S.
My wife is saying she's looked into it, so we're going to look into it. So we're good there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ehlers-Danlos.
As far as the chiropractic part goes, I've been listening to a lot of stuff by, I think his name's Tony Ebel. Is there some truth to that?
Yeah,
I mean, and the balance issues.
Oh, no question. Atlas axis impingement, which is your first two cervical vertebrae. You want a chiropractor that's doesn't just know how to adjust, but is actually an expert in cervical realignment there, especially with the atlas and the axis, because anterior head carriage or hyperkyphosis or hyperlordosis, swayed back, or anterior head carriage. These things have major consequences if you don't have them fixed, right?
And they were both C-section, so yeah, sorry to interrupt.
So C-section is going to mean that you also want to look into adding colostrum and probiotics to their diet, right? Because C-section born babies don't get inoculated with the vaginal secretions that they need to initially inoculate the microbiome with some very, very key bacteria.
She's done well with probiotic because she has eczema too. Right. So that's
so definitely gut issues. These are exactly why I want to do this in this group. I love to take this and just fix it. So that we'll still do these lives, but what I want to do is on a separate call, take set up a case each month where you guys could participate in or you not participate in. But talk about exactly what we're doing, taking deep dives into each one of these things. So if you or a loved one had something that we were highlighting that month, you would know exactly what to do. We'll get the labs, we'll do the supplements, we'll do the treatments, we'll do the post labs, all that kind of stuff.
You said there was a guy that you knew that was a DJ and he did something for his balance. It was a therapy. I can't remember what you said. Do you think that would be helpful here?
I do.
What was that therapy? I can't remember. It was a
are you talking about balance therapy?
Yes.
So there is a therapy called balance therapy, which is also coordination therapy, which is a combination of things. A good chiropractor will know how to do this. And they'll do a neurological assessment, one leg stand, other leg stand. Okay. Eyes closed, standing. They'll test reflexes and they'll look at where the nervous system is disjointed.
What about a physical therapist?
Physical therapists might be. Generally, they're advanced chiropractic, but a physical therapist might also be able to do this. It's really good functional testing for the nervous system that you do through balance testing.
Okay.
Right? You'd be surprised how many kids can stand on one leg but can't stand on the other. How many kids can touch their nose with their eyes open, but they can't find their face with both eyes closed, right? And these all say different things about the nervous system. So I think that functional neurological testing can be very, very helpful.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Amazing, guys. All right. We only have 5 minutes left. So, my team's telling me you have to wrap up, but I want to stay for a few minutes and just talk to you guys at VIPs. So, as I plan out the next few years of my life, I really have been thinking about what am I going to do with my time to make the greatest amount of impact. And either I'm going to invest it into this VIP group, because, you know, when I left my last clinic system, you know, we were making a tremendous impact through that clinic. Sadly, it started to change for monetary reasons for them. But I really feel I have this vision of taking this community and building it into the biggest longevity, health, and wellness community in the world. I truly believe that. I can actually see that for this community. And in doing that, not only do I need to be vulnerable and real and authentic with the way that I communicate with you guys, but I believe that we need to have a time and a place where we have these dialogues, where you know, I take a few minutes and answer as many questions as possible. But I really feel like to make a meaningful change, we have to go deeper, right? I mean, there's nothing better than taking case studies and taking somebody whose life is in a position where they are suffering from an ailment that they can't solve or that their physician wasn't able to fix, and bringing in the qualified health professionals and actually solving it real time. I have a very good friend of mine, my best friend, Steve, of 35 years, is dying in the hospital at Mayo Clinic. It's what, if you've seen, I've been going back and forth out to Phoenix, Arizona lately. He found out very late that he had stage 4 metastatic colon cancer, which has spread to the 3 lethal L's: the liver, the lungs, and the lymph node. And I said to myself, you know, what would I be doing with my life if I didn't actually pour everything I had into saving my best friend? And what's astounding is, after I found out that he had stage 4 metastatic colon cancer, within the next week, I had 3 other relationships, not so distant relationships of mine, that were diagnosed with the same thing. And so I am in the process of having Steve agree to release his medical records and also be very, very vulnerable about his diagnoses. And my intention is for him to put this permanently in his rearview mirror and to go back to living a normal life. I was in the room with Sage, my wife, on Saturday, when Mayo Clinic's attending and their oncologist came in and said the hard facts to him and his mother. And they basically said, your 5-year survival rate is roughly 2%. Your 10-year survival rate is 0. There's nothing we can do to save your life. The only thing that we can do is possibly prolong your life. And the possibility of prolonging your life is going to be hidden behind massive chemotherapy, massive amounts of radiation, and a sequence of very aggressive surgeries, including putting a colostomy bag on. So I said, the hell with that. And I said, we're going to throw the entire book at this. And I got him a naturopathic oncologist. I got him a board certified oncologist. I got an interventional radiologist. I have, I've got him a keto, an organic clean keto chef. I'm having a new red light therapy, high dose vitamin C IVs, EBO2 ozone. I mean, we are coming at this from every possible angle, and I'm going to take a terminally ill best friend of mine and give him his life back and permanently put this in the rearview mirror. And as I thought about it, I was like, why wouldn't I find a platform to share this, so that other people that are going through the same thing, you know, might find some hope. So, so in any case, these are the kind of things that I want to put into the VIP group, but I need you guys to help me grow this group. You know, we can't do it on $97 a month. I can if we get enough of you. So if you have a chance, I want you to refer your family, your friends, your coworkers to this group. Let's expand this message as much as we can. Let's make this the most impactful community in the world. And I will promise you this, I will do everything with every resource I have to pour into this community and actually take, you know, community members from our VIP group, bring them up on the stage, for lack of better words, have them sign the proper releases. And let's just start solving some of these things on our own. You know, let's go on the dietary journey, the health journey, the morning routines, the sleep routines, and make a meaningful difference in our life, so you guys can go out and help me make meaningful differences in other people's lives. So I just wanted to share that with you guys because of the plans that I have for this VIP group. It's going to be very difficult to do it for $97 a month, but I'm going to stick to that price. But I need to just grow this group to tens of thousands of people that are going to get hope and inspiration from what we're doing. So I have something big for you. You guys are the ones that have been showing up, putting in the work. And as a thank you for your commitment, I'm giving every single one of you, whether you bought it or not, I know tons of you have actually already bought the H2 tabs. So if you have, great. I'm going to send you guys a box of these for free. I think they're $29 or $30. So I'm sending everyone a box for free. I have 800 boxes available. So it's going to be first come, first serve. So right now we can only ship, unfortunately, to the US, but we're expanding to other markets.